the posh and bakes of weddings.
Oh, stop it. I cringe every time somebody says that.
That's Danielle's worst nightmare,
Yeah.
whereas I
That's
don't
not
mind
what
that.
you
Mark
are.
loves it. Mark loves it.
I know he does. He thought it
I
was.
cringe every time.
Like
yeah.
young David Beckham?
Well, that's what you are, isn't it? A young
I
David
certainly
Beckham.
do not look like posh bags.
Oh, I don't know. You
What
know.
about dance floor moves with the sun now? That's a discussion in itself, isn't it? Where
There's
she
probably
hijacked
weddings
the
on
wedding.
that was a big wedding, wasn't it? Right, let's get serious. So it is a Wedding Help podcast. My name's Neil Thomas, and of course this is the Wedding Help podcast. And my guests today are none other than Danielle and Mark Barnes, a celebrant and photographer. And of course, if you're asking yourself, what is Wedding Help? It is Northern Ireland's largest platform for couples getting married. So if you're getting married and you're looking at a place that you can find everything for weddings, do get on Wedding Help. Of course, the website's got over 400 vendors, and some of the top vendors in the country are on there. And the Facebook group has over 30,000 members. Guys, tell us now a bit about your businesses. So I'll start with yourself, Mark, and how you get into weddings.
Yeah, so I sort of feel like a veteran now. I bought a camera when I was 10 years of age. Had this ambition of initially wanting to be a sports photographer, and then realised...
Is that what you were thinking at the start?
Yeah, I was. You know what? I was mad.
Did you do anything with that?
No,
or?
I never talk about this too much. I was a mad Glentoran fan. Now that's going to probably get a bit of hate in itself. But yeah.
There's not many of you, is there?
No, there is not. I was back in the glory era. But it's quite funny. People sometimes say where my inspiration drew from. So I used to bring a camera to the sidelines of those games thinking I was going to be a sports photographer. But alongside that, there was someone in the industry who I would have worked with, photographing evening wedding receptions.
Yeah.
So, as I say, sidelines on a Saturday, and then Saturday night would have been photographing evening wedding parties is where I started off.
Aye.
But after chatting to Glentoran's official sports photographer at the time, a guy called Russell Pritchard, who actually was incredible at weddings. He photographed Carl Frampton's wedding.
Right.
And I remember saying, thank goodness he stayed to sports because he was incredible at what he done.
Aye.
And he was half the reason. I used to look at him on the sidelines. He used a Canon camera. And that's...
I'm not sure if I could pitch you, because you always see the sports photographers and they've always got the wet gear on.
I'm a fair weller.
It's the wet gear on. You see the high fuzzes all. I'm not sure if I could pitch you just in that sort of light at all.
You know what? That's why it didn't last a crack. So
and you see the way the poles, the poles, the cameras out the pitch sort of
and
thing,
the huge lenses and stuff. Worst nightmare. So that was short lived. Reason being, as I say, I photographed a lot of evening wedding receptions. Done that for a few years. Was making a few quid pocket money. Now, I hope that doesn't. You don't pay tax, you don't, when you're a teenager. I'm pretty sure.
No, you should be alright. You should be alright. Like,
you're under the age, right? You have no national insurance number. So from that perspective, I've done that for a few years. Loved it. Loved the party. Loved the atmosphere. Loved to crack with people. And thought, you know what? I want to pursue this. So much so that a girl, Paula, came up to me one night at an evening wedding reception, was photographing, saying, I want you to photograph my wedding. And I thought, this is my worst nightmare.
Aye.
So fast forward the clock, I was 14 years of age and I photographed my first wedding.
That's madness too, isn't it?
Mental.
Like who would employ a 14-year-old for the
Crazy.
wedding? But she obviously trusted him.
But as I said recently in a talk I was doing, it was in the era where YouTube, Instagram and Facebook were not even born at that stage.
Aye.
And that's how you know I'm a dinosaur, when you think there was no social media.
Aye.
So I suppose from that perspective it was mad to sort of educate yourself. Like I went around a lot of photographers.
Did you find, but even like starting, like say like doing a wedding at 14, did you find that, like I know whenever I started out sort of playing in bands or DJing and stuff, like I was probably 13 or 14, and you really pleased yourself. But is that a similar sort of thing with photography? Were you sort of taking things that you thought were good, and maybe not knowing just not knowing the industry as such, or knowing what you had to do,
It's the structure of the day, it's the wedding etiquette. Obviously even back then all weddings were still being held in churches and chapels, so it started off in Carmoney Presbyterian Church, and you were kind of like walking in and chatting to the minister beforehand to be like, where do I stand? It's funny now, as I say, I educate a lot of photographers, but it's funny because I think back that, no question's a silly question. When people say to me, Mark, what way do you do this in the middle of a church? In my head, I'm going, that's like riding a bike now. But at the time,
it's just second nature now.
It was a foreign concept to be going, right, I'm going into a church and I'm about to photograph the bride walking down the aisle, where did I?
Aye.
And I was terrified, most terrifying day of my life. But looking back on it, class, what a
So
memory.
many years have you
So
sort of
I'm
been doing
22 years at it now. This year will see me hit the 1,000 wedding mark.
You seriously?
Yeah.
Very good.
Which is
Very
crazy.
good.
So when you break that down in years, I think I've spent 3 years of my life at weddings.
That's amazing. But do you know what? Like I've worked with weddings, you love every minute of it. Like
Yeah.
like you're just enjoying yourself like as much as
Brilliant.
anybody else. Like.
I come home like a Duracell bunny to Danielle half the time, and I come back and I'm like, I was like hanging out with 2 friends for the day. It's brilliant, and that's for me. That's the most important thing when it comes to it. At the end of the day, you want to have that rapport. You want to gel with your photographer, because we are probably the most personal service of the day. You're spending more time with me than any other wedding vendor.
Before we came on, like we were sort of chatting about that, and about the gelling process, and as you say, you have to with a photographer. They're there from basically morning prep until first dance or whatever. You need to make sure that person's.
That's it. We're there from
that you're going to get on with them, like, or else you're big, like.
Yeah, big time. We're there from the first bottle of Prosecco being popped in the morning till these are all a wee bit worse for wear, So it is. It's such. I always say myself and Danielle, we're 2 personal services. I say to people all the time, we're sounding cruel to any like room decor people or cake people, but if they're not a people person, it's fine because they're coming in, they're setting up, and they're going.
You're not really seen now,
and they don't really have that sort of personal connection as such, which is absolutely fine. Maybe it's best suited for them, because I know for me, some people say to me, "Your job is my worst nightmare, being social all day and being around crowds."
Did even I'll admit it myself, like 4 or 5 hours I can manage, like, but your personality is that you're somebody who, I suppose you're a people person. Like, I don't know if I'm a people person, I don't do it.
You're still learning.
And, well, do you know what? There's it's just your personality. Like, that is your personality. Like, you
have to be. Honestly, like I say to people all the time, if you're not a people person, please don't go into the wedding industry, because it's full on, it's intense. However, it is for me the most rewarding job you can do. It's incredible. To have the privilege to be in one of the most important day of a couple's life is something else, And I think sometimes you step back from it in a third party and go, I actually do that for a living. It's what I've done my whole life.
It's not that as well, I suppose with photos as well. And I always think this, even like whenever I started out doing weddings, and it's probably more for you because these professional I get photographers that send photos over. Oh, deal, there's a wedding you're performing at. And I've had them throughout the years, and you see the difference, I suppose, which isn't so good.
Yeah.
But there's your photos out there, your photos 20 years ago of weddings you done, and then people's going to bring that album out every, 6 to 8 months or maybe a year. Maybe the Wades are going to go, let us see that album, and bring that out. That's your photos,
that's it. That's why you
work.
hear a lot of photographers when you go on their websites. It sounds sort of cliche, but you hear their pricing section being called an investment, and it is true to a sense, because the value of your photographs grow as each year passes, and you lose loved ones. And without sounding morbid, but it's so true. I've noticed that this last year I've had a few DMs from brides saying, "Mark, I just want to thank you because the photos you got of me and my granny are priceless, and we lost her a few months ago." And it does. You come away from it and go, you didn't think at that moment in time that the importance of that.
Definitely
only
not.
Afterwards.
Definitely not.
That becomes.
I always say
so
for my own show, it's not until I see the photos. You're so caught up. Like whenever I'm performing, I'm caught up in what I'm doing, and you don't really see it. Then a photographer sends you through the pictures, and you look at maybe pictures of the crowd down the background. And go, cheaper, so look at that. That looks so good. And you don't realise because you're just
in the zone.
You're in the zone, you're doing your own wee thing, you just miss everything that's going on, and you don't know how important photos are.
Yeah.
I think, to capture that crowd reaction, and stuff, it's amazing,
It's so true, and you know what I always say, those photos with the likes of your granny, it could be any relative, but the likes of your granny in particular, that was a couple of texts I've had this year. At the time, they're never making it on Instagram. They're not the part of the highlights reel as such.
Yeah.
They're not the ones that are going to book you weddings or market your wedding photography.
Aye.
They turn out to be the most important photographs for that couple on the day.
Time.
And I think that's what we sometimes lose track of. We live in a social media driven era where we're all looking for likes and follows and the love of going, look how amazing you look in that photograph. But at the same time, we sometimes strip it back and realise that it's one of the few occasions in life that you get all your friends and family under one roof, and that's why it's so important nowadays to be present in those moments and not be away for, as I say to all couples, don't be away for a 1 hour photo shoot. It's overkill. in my opinion, in this day and age, you want to be. More and more couples are coming to me and being, Mark, I want to enjoy my drinks reception. I'm like, I will make sure that happens, you know.
And embrace the whole thing, so photos become part of the whole what's going on as well.
100%, that's it, you know. So thankfully, people are looking more real, more authentic. They're not just, let's go out and have every image posed, you know. It's more just go with the flow, enjoy it as it unfolds.
Danielle, Celebrant, and you've got about 30 other jobs as well. Mark was saying you're on all the boards it's going, so you are. Tell us how it all came about for you. How did you get into becoming a Celebrant?
So I've always been kind of involved in Mark's business behind the scenes. I used to be a primary school teacher and would have helped Mark out at a lot of weddings. So love weddings, it's just incredible. So Mark at one stage was trying to push me into the photography route. Trying to really push me into that. But as much as I loved the photography side of things, it just wasn't me. It just wasn't what I was passionate about. And then the world of celebrancy kind of came up, and it was an idea floated for a little while, kind of put it back on the back burner when COVID had happened. And then we had our second child, and it was after then that I thought, you know what, let's do this. So
but you're an organised person, and that's probably, whenever you were helping Mark with his business, a lot of that, I would say, was organisation as well as probably doing bits and pieces with cameras, but bringing organisation. You're very much a creative. And an organisation in business is, I would say, something that you really instilled in what you're doing. Like, would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, I was behind the scenes and a lot of the admin stuff that Danielle was incredible at. And little did you think that when you're a wedding celebrant, that is...
But exactly, so it's a perfect match for you because, organising all that, putting things together, and you're natural whenever it comes to speaking and stuff. So that's just it's a perfect role for you.
The opportunity came up, and I thought, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. So let's do it. And it literally has been the best decision I have ever made. I absolutely live and breathe weddings now. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I know everybody says, oh, I love my job and all the rest of it. But I truly do. It doesn't feel like work when it just becomes your life. And I suppose being married to somebody within the industry, the two of us live and breathe weddings. It's just everything that we do, and it's amazing. It's amazing to be in this position where I have my husband in the industry. We're two very separate businesses. We do two different things. However, we can kind of bounce off each other, and Mark has taught me so much over the years that I've been able then to apply that in my business.
It was probably a great step as well, because you'd seen the back, you just weren't jumping on.
Absolutely. I knew how a wedding day ran. I knew the structure of what went in there. I photographed alongside Mark. I photographed so many ceremonies. I knew the structure of a day, but then also then building up relationships with other wedding suppliers.
But it's such a helping hand too, because weddings are one of them things. Like, even for me, coming from an entertainment point of view, like, I'm probably really doing weddings about 15 years. Before that, I was doing like pubs and stuff like that. Complete different. And I suppose that's why you would see, like, especially in entertainment, you'll see like sort of pub band stuff. So, we're going to get into the wedding market. Hey, it's
a different ball game.
It's a different ball game, and I don't think vendors or suppliers realise how different a wedding is to a different way of celebrant it is a wedding thing, or it can be used to different things. Or photographer, very much weddings, but for that other thing, like entertainment stuff, DJs, you sort of progress from like a club scene or progress from that scene. It's just completely different. Weddings are a different world.
One of the big compliments I noticed with Danielle as a celebrant is, because she had years of assisting me at weddings, is, I suppose, a pain point that we deal with as a photographer is like when you have a minister or a priest and they're like standing, clueless to where you are positioned, because they're told you can only stand in this one corner, or sometimes the ceremony room can be quite tight. So we have literally one area to stand in, you can't move. but they're like blocking your vision. You're like, this would be so beautiful if that minister or priest or a different registrar could move to the side. Whereas Danielle always gets the compliments of, I can't have tell you work with a photographer for years.
I get it at like practically 90% of weddings that I do with Mark not as the photographer and the photographer and videographer prior to the ceremony. I'll always communicate with whoever's on the media team, photography, videography, content creator, whoever's there, and I'll always explain, this is where I'm going to have the couple, and I'm always mindful of those moments being captured. At the end of the day, being married to a photographer, I have that benefit of knowing how important those memories are being captured. So a lot of the kind of media team people will always say to me afterwards, oh my goodness, you can't have to tell you're married to a photographer, because I'm so mindful. If a couple's not in the right position and I can see they're not centre, I'll immediately be like, let's move them across. I will do that because I know that from that photographer's perspective, we want them centre, we want them looking absolutely gorgeous. I will position my couple in a way that they're turned and facing out towards their guests so that the photographer can capture all those moments and reactions and things like that. I'm so aware of my surroundings too, and I think that really helps then the media team be able to capture those moments. And so many people will say to me, my goodness, you cannot, like, you can tell that you're married to a photographer because you're so mindful of those things.
But I suppose as well, the thing of that is, if it's a minister, if it's a priest, how would you put this? It's not their thing. Do you know?
They're not worried about it. Well,
it's not their thing. And I think even, I think a celebrant is becoming more and more popular. A celebrant's something that you might say to somebody older, oh, we're having a celebrant. Are you? Here, won't you a minute, stop you. Until you see a celebrant action, and to be honest, I don't attend a lot of weddings as a guest, so I would hardly see. But I've been to a few recently where it's been a celebrant, and it's so nice. It's so personal to a couple, and I don't mean in a bad way towards a priest or towards a minister or like that sort of church. You're not. I don't think you're going to get as much of that personalised touch as what you'll get with a celebrant. It's just so personal. It's just so nice to watch. I think
Yeah, I always say that I'm creating a ceremony that's a reflection on that couple. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I'm creating something that they actually want, and putting things in there that they want to have in there and telling their story, as opposed to you may get a religious ceremony, and if the priest or minister maybe know that couple, they might talk a little bit more about them. But it tends to be that they maybe don't know the couple. So, of course, that priest and minister is not going to talk about the couple because they don't know them. Whereas I'm actually getting to know my couples, and I'm going to create something that's actually for them. And it just means that anyone, who's sitting there, any guests there, or, I've had now, I married a couple and her bridesmaid then booked me. Since then, her friend has booked me.
But you can see...
It's different every time.
But you can see it's just so personal. It really is. Like I was at a cousin's wedding, and it was a celebrant that done it, and it was just it's a different atmosphere. And then I was at the wife's friend got married, and it was Pastor
James.
Oh,
he's a great friend of ours.
He was a celebrant there.
He's fabulous.
Brilliant. Awesome. Just so nice, so personal. Everybody having a bit of a laugh. Everybody, it's such a nice thing, and I think I would say in 10 years' time, celebrants are going to be a lot bigger. It's just that older generation.
I always get a deal at weddings. Somebody, older typically will come up to me at a wedding and say, oh my goodness me, I've never been to a wedding like that. I've always just been in church. Like what, is that legal? I get asked that question quite a bit. Is that legal? And I say, yeah, absolutely. But it's a new concept. It is a new concept for a lot of older people.
I know you're flat out, you're busy with weddings, but I reckon in 10 years' time, as more and more people go to weddings and more people see that sort of setup, they're going to go, hold on a minute, this is the way to go. It's nice, it's personal. There's just something different.
I think at the end of the day, what I am always striving for within my business and for all couples, we now live in a world that couples have choice. And they have choice in everything.
Aye.
And so when it comes to now getting married, couples now have choice where they can choose. And if they want to go down a religious route, absolutely.
It's not the days older of, we had such and such photographer at our wedding, that's who you're having. It's not the days of a muller nearly
picking it for you.
And I think that's the way it was for a long time. Your muller was nearly the
person who decided.
Your muller knew the band, the G dance.
She went to work with one drummer.
Do you know what I mean? It was that very much
so true. Like I said this even recently. I said when I first started, your only options were church or the town hall. So it was church or registry office. And kind of registry office always had that kind of shotgun wedding vibe. Like, why are they going to the registry office first?
It was nearly like a bad sort of thing, wasn't it?
And it's so true. And nowadays, I tend to notice, it sounds awful to say because you were saying there about how celebrant-led weddings are taking over. Statistically now, in the island of Ireland, north and south, it's the number one denomination as such. Is celebrant-led weddings.
We were at the Beach Hill doing their show around, and I think they said every 8 in 10 weddings at the Beach Hill is a celebrant.
Yeah.
I think the way they put it was every 8 in 10 was hosted at the beach. They done the ceremony at the
More and more couples are choosing to have their ceremony where they want to have it. So therefore, if they're booking a wedding venue and they have the option of having a ceremony there, they're thinking, logistically, moving my guests from one place to another, they can just have it under one roof.
It's so nice as well. Like even that one that we done with Pastor James. Sorry, I've said to myself because I've met him at the awards and stuff. It's going to say that boy doesn't know my name. I do. So, but it was at the Calgore, and you know what? It was brilliant. We just walked up around the corner, and we were at the afternoon drinks reception. There's something to be said about that too. Do you know what I mean? For your guests, we stayed the night before, so. Sort of got up, had breakfast.
And what's fab about James is he offers a religious, obviously he is a minister, he's a pastor, so he offers the religious side of things, but also personalises it. And not a lot of ministers do that.
I found that really, interesting because it was still very personal.
Yeah.
And
I'll have couples that will reach out to me and they're looking for something more religious, and I'll say, I'm not the person for you. But here, Pastor James is one of those people that I would say he absolutely would be for you because they're looking for more of that religious route. They just want a more personalised route, and that's why we now have choice.
Do you find that a big thing with celebrants? Whenever you're chatting to couples, do you think that you find that recommendation? Maybe I'm not the person for you, but I know who is. Do you find yourself maybe chatting to a couple and saying, look, I don't know if I'm for you, but this is... Would you find yourself doing that a lot?
I got asked one time at a wedding show I was doing, a guy came over and he said, and what kind of style are you? And I thought, oh God, I don't know. I've never been asked this question. I had to kind of step back and think about it. And I said to him, I kind of think of myself as I want to create a lovely, relaxed, beautiful environment for you. I want there to be laughter and all those things. But also where I sit is that we also need to remember this is a beautiful wedding ceremony. And it is something serious too. It's not just a joke. Yeah. So I always say that where I would sit is somewhere in the middle of let's have a laugh, let's be relaxed, let's have all of that, but let's also treasure how beautiful your day is as well, and that this is a serious marriage that you're walking into. So I kind of sit somewhere in the middle is where I sit. But there's celebrants who are the funniest people in the world. They're joke after joke after joke after joke, and that suits some couples because that's what they want. Then you've got some couples that are a little bit more serious and they want something a bit more toned down. Then there's celebrants that can cover that. So there's so many of us celebrants out there. I suppose we all do the same, but we do different.
The thing as well, but we celebrants as well that can maybe trick couples or whatever. They because there's so much variety as well, and maybe not knowing the legalities and stuff, but you can advise and all that. Isn't that
absolutely,
right?
yeah.
That's a good thing as well.
I advise all couples. I say, look online. Social media is where it's at now. Look online. See if you like the vibe of that person, how they're portraying themselves online anyway. And then pick a couple of people that you kind of think that you would vibe with, and then meet them. I say it to all of my couples.
And would you always meet up with a couple?
I always encourage them to meet with me. I joke on and say, meet with me and make sure I'm not a melter. because at the end of the day, you are spending time with me on your day, and you want to look back on this day with no regrets.
Well, you're doing something as well. You know, you're going to write something about that couple, which is going to be personal to them, and it's real. You know, you're guaranteed to be filmed. That you know, that part of your wedding. You know, as you know, if you have a videographer, you're guaranteed your wedding photos. Like, you know, I'm not saying like I'm there doing a hypnotist show or whatever. There's no guarantee that I'm. You know, you're part of the thing as.
Your ceremony's the reason why you're having the day. You're getting married.
You're part of it. Like, you know,
every wedding there's a ceremony.
Exactly.
Every vendor can be optional, even a photographer.
But it's necessary to have somebody there to do your ceremony.
And even it's only just filmed on a phone, whatever it is. You're there. Like, do you know what I mean?
But I think it is so important
personal words that you
find the person that fits your vibe too. And I think that's what's beautiful, and I think it's a joy to have, and it's the reason that there are so many people in the industry doing this now, is because there's choice, and couples have choice, and they're able to kind of like choose their best fit essentially, but also looking at the celebrant to see if is that a reflection of my personality. There's some celebrants out there, they're completely different from me. The couples that they're going to attract are completely different from the couples that I'm going to attract. So I just think it's so important for vendors and for celebrants to realise that too, that it's not a like, oh my goodness, I need to get X, Y and Z of all these couples, Actually, you just need to get the right couple for you. And also couples looking at those, you know, those celebrants need to say, what suits us? What is our vibe, and what does that person fit within our wedding? Because if they don't, there's going to be somebody that does. Yeah,
and I suppose if we look at from a vendor point of view, it's sort of a bad thing too, because all vendors aren't going to think like you. And the reason I say that is because, you know, and it's the same with yourself, Mark. We're lucky that we're busy, if that makes sense. You know, and not that we're picking and choosing what we do, but we have our eyes open a bit more, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys?
Absolutely.
That we're not going to, you know, if a couple's contact us, we're seeing that it's right for us, and we're seeing that it's right for them. We're not just grabbing the job because we need a job.
That's it.
Does that
100%. Well, that's it. As I say, we're both full time, and we always have been in these careers. And I think.
Did you say full time? Or even holidays? Do you not?
Well, I was going to say part time outside of holidaying.
We do like our holidays.
I thought you were like a rep for Tenerife or something. You're not like a ambassador or something.
If Jet2 or anything like that are watching, and they do want to, reach out to me, then by all means.
If you want to do ads for this podcast, feel free to jump on.
£60 off a family of 4. So I suppose from that point of view, obviously we're both full time, and I think that's sometimes important as well. We're not doing this as a weekend job. We don't have a Monday to Friday, so you can pick up the phone to us at any stage if you have any advice needed. If you have any queries, we're always there for all our couples. And I even said to couples just recently there who tried to book me, and I was already booked. I says, give me a call. I says, and I'll certainly steer you in the direction of people who I would work closely with, who I think would be a perfect fit for you.
I think you had something really, really important there. You're full time at it. It's your job. Funny, I was chatting to a band recently, and they're full time band. It's a band that's they're the professionals. I was chatting to them, and I was chatting to one of the guys in it, and we were chatting about he goes, the weekend warriors, and it's true. There is people out there that's they've got jobs during the week, and then they're maybe doing a bit of entertainment stuff at the weekend. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But there is something to be said that somebody that's loving day in day out, they're doing this as a profession. They're involved in it. So if you need to ring somebody on a Monday, you're going to get through to if I have a question to get answered from you, you're sitting in your emails every day. You're doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah. This is it. Like I even seen it firsthand last year, and this isn't to scare anybody who does it as a job, but the videographer that was booked had a full time job and couldn't get the day off work in the end. And he had to send someone else to film the wedding, and I thought, geez, that's not a nice, especially when you've booked a service based on his personality. Yeah. And then you've realised he can't get it off. He's used up all his holidays, and you're like, geez, I don't have that struggle. When you're booked in, you're booked in. That date is yours. And
I suppose even going back to the thing as we were saying, there's that professionalism, but it's just having that. that person that you could turn to as well, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you know,
big time.
And I think when you are a personal service like this, it's not like we can just send somebody else on the day.
no.
You know, you're booking us essentially. Like when somebody comes to book me as their celebrant, they're booking me.
Aye.
It's not, you know, it's not that I just can, you know, send somebody else to come and replace me for that day.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, I'm there able to legally marry a couple, so again there's legal paperwork and there's legal, you know, the legality side of things, so it's really crucial, but you can't just, you know, not be there. So
so it is.
That's not to say that the people who are doing this on a part-time basis too, you know, they're maybe doing it
no,
alongside.
there's some great.
They absolutely are amazing.
Some people love the stability. I get that. You know,
I'm not saying that at all. Like, you know, I'm just saying, like, it's that sort of thing of. It's just, you know, you're getting the service, you're getting somebody's committed really. You know, like, I'm committed to do so many jobs a year. I have to get them jobs in, and that's my business. You know, so I'm running it like a business as such.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
This is where, a bit like Danielle saying there, we literally live and breathe weddings, and that's it. We make a living from it, and we make a great living from it, and we love what we do. So yeah,
and I mean, people joke on, because Mark and I we are Duracell bunnies behind the scenes. We are Duracell bunnies.
I've worked with like, I know,
like, we are like workaholics. We really are. The two of us are, and you know, people always joke on and say we take on a high volume of work, but we always consider ourselves, we're young, fit and healthy right now, and this is our time to do it. And you know, I say, and I can speak for myself, I am so passionate about what I do, and every single one of my couples can feel that passion, and they get the service that they deserve. And it doesn't matter if I have 100 weddings in that year or if I have 50 weddings in that year, they're all going to be given the dedicated service from me. And I think there's, in the industry sometimes, you know, it's been bandied about before, you know, ask your supplier how many weddings they take on, because if they do too many, you'll not get, you know, you'll kind of not be their focus. And I highly disagree with that, because for no other reason than actually your personal circumstances lead into that. So one vendor who says they're fully booked, their fully booked might be that they take 15 weddings a year, and another vendor who's fully booked might be 100 weddings a year. And I don't think anybody's personal circumstances, their home life, their, you know, whether they've children, whether they're married, whether they work,
it's a professional service. So well, you know, even like if a couple said, my goodness, like, he's doing 150 weds a year, is that going to be right for me? Because it seems a wild lot. Like, you know, if it's a professional service, if you're buying into something, you know, you're looking at the work and you're going, well, do you know what, the standard work's fantastic. You know, I bought into that. Like, do you know what I mean?
And it's the delivery on the day, and it's the you know, and delivery for Mark after the day, as well, and that service and that personal service and that, you know, that you're given to that couple, and that doesn't change. And yes, we take on a high volume, but we take on a high volume because we can.
So true. And I suppose it's the things people don't see behind the scenes. Like, you know, I done a wedding there a few days ago, and one thing that I'm sort of disciplined for is to make sure they have a preview the following day. Now, I know for some people they're going, Mark, you are making this my worst nightmare because you're setting the standard high. But at the same time, if you see us on a Sunday some days and we're out having a family day, I'm sitting on my MacBook in the car, and Danielle's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have to get this preview.
I'm the chauffeur.
Covered passenger princess.
We're self-employed too. And that's the thing. Like, you know, like I know most Saturday nights, like whenever I get on, Saturday night seems to be a thing where you get a load of inquiries through, and I'm maybe down in Wexford or somewhere doing an after bill show. I'll you know, I drive up, get into the office at like 2 o'clock in the morning, go, do you know what, I'll get these answered now because they'll come back to me in the morning. So they will, and like people will be saying, at 2 o'clock in the morning you're going to sit and answer. I'll run through my WhatsApp, run through my emails, get everything answered, and that people might say you're mental at that time of the morning.
I agree.
But and I know then, you know, that couple get up on a Sunday morning, they go, oh, there's that information, he's got it all through to us there now, and you know, it lets them go. Like, do you know what I mean? You know,
it's kind of adapting. People say about Gen Z and how they expect immediate answers.
You
know, it's not like, you know, I talk to some suppliers, and fair play, listen, everybody's got their own way of running business, but they'll talk about boundaries and be like, I wouldn't respond to anybody. I respond Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and I'm like, but we're not a 9 to 5 service. We're not your doctor or your dentist. That, you know, you can't ring them on a Sunday night because you have a toothache. However, you know, the first past the post, by you responding, if they've reached out to 2 hypnotists in Ireland, but you responded in 4 hours, and the other guy took 4 days. Who do you think's going to get the booking first? You'll have your deposit in before he's responded.
And you know what? I don't think it's even that. I think people nearly expect it. It's not the days of going. Like even wedding fairs and stuff aren't what they were. Whenever I started out, wedding fairs were huge. Do you know what I mean?
It was where everybody kind of...
Couples came round the wedding fair, they chatted to, they stood, they talked to you and stuff. The new generation is such, they send the message, and I suppose we'll touch on this as well whenever I've got loads of questions, we haven't even got into it. But I suppose that is part of the thing of, sourcing out or getting that wee bit of information, building a picture. That's what people do now. They don't go... they want that wee bit of information to see if it's actually within their price budget.
Absolutely.
If it's meant for them, really. I suppose price is a big thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that had Sunday, the first question, weddings, at a zero. Like we hear it all the time, on the group and stuff. People go back, it sounds a while lot, like for a service that you're offered. What's your thoughts on that? Like for a vendor or for a couple, pricing and stuff, or
and once again, I do. Sometimes I'm talking to at wedding shows, and a couple will come around. They've got their parents, and it's always that one when they hit you straight away. The parents are just going, "How much is it?" And then you tell them your price, and they're like, "Geez, you get that for a day's work?"
Aye.
And that's the auto reaction to go for taking a few photos. And I'm like, it's for starters, you're not just paying for 1 day service. You're paying for part of it's the consultations, the wedding day, the editing, the afterwards. But not just that, you're paying for my 22 years of experience and what I bring to the table when it comes to your wedding day.
But there's so much more than just, and even people might say about my own service. Like I put my prices up this year. Do you know what? I actually put them just on the website and stuff. Let people.
Gets rid of,
do you know what? It gets rid of the thing of saying,
answering emails that are never going to be.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so I put them up on the website, and I don't know, I was a bit hesitant about it, to be honest. But I think people go, God, that sounds a while lot for an hour's work, and you're going to yourself, it's so much more than an hour's work. Like, it's not that we're giving up. Like, we're giving up like a Saturday. We're giving up, weekend. We're driving to a job. The show has been, like, for myself, the show has been designed to really bring that, an hour to your wedding is going to be, such a big thing. Like, it's, I'm there to create an atmosphere. It's a show like nothing you're going to see. You know what I mean? You're not going to go to your local pub and see that show because I'll not be in your local pub. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, it's so true. At the end of the day, you're not just paying for that vendor and that applies to all vendors. You're paying for, their insurances, their public liability, all that. I think sometimes people look at a wedding photographer and go, well, what overheads has he got if he doesn't have a studio? And I'm like, there's so much behind the scenes, from your editing software.
You've vehicles, equipment,
it's crazy.
And you're paying for professional service, like we touched on before. It's a professional service that, we're securing people's bookings in 2-3 years in advance. That means that we're open to communication with that couple. For those 2-3 years that we've also secured that in, you're paying for a professional service for that length of time.
We know ourselves as well. We're like everybody else. Like we're getting the week's wages. We're not, people think, oh my goodness, you must be making 3 fortunes. Brilliant, like, we have to pay tax, we have to do everything else just like anybody working a normal job. Like, do you know what I mean? It's
so true.
It's like anything else. Like, do you know what I mean?
And I think the whole thing around budget and couples maybe looking and thinking, adding the zeros, like you were saying, like, it's wise for couples to reach out and be, investigate and see, because a lot of these couples are maybe writing things like that because they actually just genuinely don't know the price of things. So it is wise for, if they're researching for a photographer, get a few different quotes, but also look at the service that you're getting. And yes, there could be one vendor that's charging more than another, but what's the reason for that? And is there a difference?
Work it out, find it out, ask, and don't be probably scared to ask your vendor, look, what is up with that price? Like I know with a hypnotist show, I'll do probably 80 to 100 weddings a year. I need to charge a certain amount because you know, in order for to keep the thing running, keep it on the road, I need to be get that amount to make it.
Well, it's the same across all. At the end of the day, it's the same across all industries. You know, there's markets for everybody. What I mean is, if you go in, you're buying a new car, and you want to go in and see a Dacia Duster, or you want to go in and see a BMW X5. Different markets, different, you know, but there could be somewhere in the middle. You want a Honda CRV. And once again, there are different dynamics. Same with restaurants. You can go to Witherspoons, have a nice meal, or you can go to a Michelin star restaurant.
And I think that's for every vendor. It doesn't matter what you're. I think every vendor, you know, that's something that applies. You know,
big time. I've had it. Like I've even seen it firsthand with like wedding cakes, for example, where I see people spend £200. And I've seen people spend £1,500. There's no right or wrong, because for that person, that £1,500 cake is the thing that she has dreamt about. That is going to be the showstopper. That's going to be the talking point of that wedding day. And once again, I see people, and there's no right or wrong. You know, I see people who buy a wedding dress off the rack, and I see people who flew to a different country to go and source their dress because it's something they dreamt about from they were no age. And as I say, there's no right or wrong to that. Just people have different priorities when it comes to their day, and that's what's.
And I suppose it leads on to the next thing as well, the ghosting epidemic, as we've talked about, and that's from both sides, from vendors maybe ghosting brides and grooms. It's maybe asking for a certain reason. I don't know. Like most inquiries, I'll always answer back, as I said, like 2:00 in the morning. If I get an inquiry on a Saturday night, I'm in front of my diaries. You know, I use two are far more high tech than an old diary, like, you know. But you know, I'm in front of my diaries. I'm doing that, you know, and I'll get back to them. But I suppose that goes both ways. So, you know, I'm sending over stuff, I'm maybe hearing nothing back. You know, it's maybe just too expensive. I suppose same with vendors as well.
I suppose obviously, Dale, from your perspective, you're in a bit more of a niche, as in there's not 50 hypnotists in Ireland. You know what I mean?
Definitely not.
There's probably a handful, I'm sure. Whereas with the likes of myself and Danielle, there's a lot of us. So I always put myself in a couple's shoes. They're coming into this wedding world. Maybe they don't have friends or family who've got married. I've spoken to a lot of couples, and they're like, "Mark, this is our first time. This is so overwhelming." So from that point of view, there is so much choice to sort of navigate through. But at the same time, I tell a lot of vendors, don't get too hung up on the ghosting. Reason being, if you can imagine, I know when I'm sourcing a joiner, I'll maybe email for 3 or 4 different quotes, or I'll ask them what they can do better than the other person. And don't get me wrong, 9 times out of 10, I'll drop them a text to say, thanks so much for your time, I get sorted elsewhere, which we all want. That's what we're all craving for. Let us know one way or the other. We're going to wish you all the best and have an amazing day. And it's lovely to hear that they, you know, gelled with someone that suited them.
I would say from your point of view, and you had it there in the head, I don't, like, to be honest, I don't see it as much as probably maybe a photographer sees it, because, you know, you have 100 photographers to choose from. So, you know, you've maybe messaged Mark Barnes, you've messaged, you know, such and such, you've messaged, you know, you've messaged so many, so you might see it maybe more.
Well, that's it. I used to see it firsthand, funny enough. I used to share a studio with a great friend of mine, Sam, and it was quite funny because he would have been sitting working away, and I suppose it's the parts you don't see behind the scenes, and he'd said, I just got an inquiry in, and I'd be like, is that Ella? And he was like, yeah. He says, do you get that too? And I'm like, yeah. Because I says, we are similar enough style. I says, we're both based in the same kind of region. I said, so of course just having a wee Google, a wee search. I said,
nightmare.
You know, and I always used to banter him. I said, you're taking this well personal. I said, she's probably emailed 8 others, or my favourite one. And I suppose this can be a tip to any couples out there. Don't CC us in emails. That happens, and that rails the life out of wedding.
What did you see? I've never seen that.
You'll get it twice a year where a couple, and I think it's BCC is when it's private. Use the BCC. Don't do it. If you're going to save a wee bit of time, I get it. You want to email 20 people at once, but see the minute, I've heard a lot of people see, you know, 20 photographers CC.
I definitely notice it, that, like, because I have an our business, Wedding Extras, which does like photo booths and that, you know, like LED letters and stuff. I definitely noticed such a difference from the hypnotist show to the Wedding Extras business, because the Wedding Extras business, it's such a competitive, but like, you know, there's so many photo booth suppliers, maybe not as much with LED letters and stuff, but definitely with photo booths now, you know, like, you know, you'll get ghosted and that sort of thing, whereas the hypnotist show, they will come back to you, like, so you definitely...
Like I always, you know, when I'm speaking to other celebrants, and I'm part of a society, Humanist Society, and we quite often will have a chat like us celebrants, and people will talk about ghosting and say, you know, like, oh my goodness, I've just been ghosted again, and you know, couples aren't coming back and those kind of things. And I say, listen, don't be fooled. Of course, you have to look at this inquiry coming in and know that of course they've contacted other celebrants too. You know, I think, you know, some people get strung up, and suppliers want to hope that they're the person that person's contacted, and that's the only person. But realistically, we all know, of course, you'd be silly as a couple or to expect that a couple isn't inquiring with anybody else as well. And I know when a couple reaches out to me that I'm not the only celebrant they're reaching out to, and rightly so, because it comes down again to choice. Yeah, so like you as a supplier, I suppose you can take it really to heart, but I suppose we've always looked at it and said, well, actually, we know, let's be honest, if we were going to get married again and we were going to you'd get prices of multiple people that you like the look of, and you try before you buy, and you want to know these things before you jump in.
Would you book me if he's if he's a redo?
Deal, I would totally book you.
But Mark hasn't said he wants you.
I'd have to check your reviews and stuff. Right.
Reviews.
Oh, massive.
There we go.
Reviews are so important, and I say it to all couples too. I'm like, read reviews. When I stand at a wedding fair, one of the first things I always say, listen, my top tip to anybody is read reviews. Like, it's so important in this, you know, in this industry, in this world, that we all have our reviews on show, and you're able to stand over what people are saying about you. And again, comes down to choice. I keep using that word, but it's so important.
True.
Yeah,
I do. I always use it from personal experiences when it comes to like advising people on booking their wedding. Reason being, if you see an amazing hotel you want to go on holiday, funny how holidays get touched on, but you look at the photos and go, wow.
You're bound to know them all, and I've
got through a few of them now, so there's only a few left. But if you see an amazing hotel and you look at the photos and go, wow, but all of a sudden you go on TripAdvisor and see it's, you know, 3.5 out of 5, you're like, right, okay, a few red flags, and you start reading the reviews and go, oh, the staff were awful, the food was terrible. You're not going to book that place, even though on the outside it looked incredible. And for me, that's the same way I look at it from a wedding business perspective. You could look at something on paper and go, oh, Danielle looks amazing, look, oh, she looks class, look at those videos. But all of a sudden, if you went on our reviews and they were a mixed bag, you'd be like, right, okay, something, you know, something doesn't add up here. Obviously, that's not the case, they're all facts. But, you know, and that's, I try to bring those personal views into how a business should be run, and it's something I've always prided myself on, because I know when I book any service in life, I go to reviews. That's how I first found my car mechanic. He was the highest reviewed car mechanic in Northern Ireland, and that's something I've always tried to sort of.
Do you find that hard as vendors to set? Do you know, like I know for myself with a hypnotist show, you're sort of like, you know, you'll see somebody leave a review on Facebook or whatever, and you're like, oh, you know, thanks very much. Like, you know. But there's so many different places now as well, reviews. So from a vendor point of view, do you find that hard going, you know, because I have reviews of people leaving Google, I have reviews of people leaving Facebook, you know, but to get your reviews in the right place and stuff, or how do you direct couples in, I suppose?
I think from my point of view, the two most important sources in our industry is Facebook and Google. I know, obviously, you know, when it comes to other businesses, it might be Trustpilot. When it comes to hotels, it'll be TripAdvisor. That seems to be the industry, you know, what works for that industry. But for us, I would say Facebook and Google. And the reason I say Facebook and Google, you can create fake accounts very quickly for TripAdvisor, for Trustpilot. With Facebook and Google, not so much. There's a lot of verification. So for me, standing over, you know, for me, I have 416 5-star reviews across both of those platforms. But you go on, there's a real face, there's a real name. It's not just Sarah and Tim had a wonderful wedding day that I plastered on my website, and I could have been making that up. Yeah, you know. So
it's definitely important for couples to go and look at that too. Like it, you know, it does, like, and work out and go, well, and even looking and going like, well, when was the last one? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Too.
That's a big thing as well.
Make sure they're still active, and to make sure they're still. there is a bit of that too, where people thrive on seeing your presence on social media. Like if you go a year without posting on Instagram or Facebook, it will draw attention to your couples that have you booked to be like, is everything okay? Is he still alive? You know, and it does. You kind of have to be active. Even I get it. We're all super busy. But I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Even if you go on, take one photograph and be like, this is where I am today, people just like to see that you're active.
And you're out and about and you're doing something.
Yeah.
I always try and get a photo with the bride and groom after I do the show. I can always think it's just that wee personal thing as well, but it also shows all our couples. But do you know what? Like, he has it out and about, like, you know, because I always get asked, you know, oh, do you cover the South? Like, you know, and we're like,
and it shows your face as well. Obviously, we're living in an era where people buy people. So if you go on a website now, they say you should have your photograph plastered somewhere on it, because if you click on a website and it's faceless, you're kind of like, I don't even know what this guy looks like. I don't know what this girl looks like.
Yeah.
And they're saying now, we're in this generation more so than ever, that people want to see, you know, the photograph of the person. They want to see a bit about them.
that wouldn't have been something, especially with photographers, you know, 20 years ago. Obviously, Celebrant, you are buying them. Yours very much.
Yeah, but there's still some celebrants there who are not advertising their face as much. They're not, you know, there's still, I think across the board in the wedding industry, there's still some suppliers that have this like nearly a fear of putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
You know, I was saying to you prior to coming onto the podcast, this setup and doing this isn't exactly my comfort zone, and it's not where I would. No, but you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone sometimes, and I agree with Mark in saying people are buying people now. You know, you're wanting to walk in and know that you've got, you know, the right person, and I think as a supplier, you need to put yourself out there a little bit more. You should have your face pinned up there. You should have a little bit more about you. And I know that everybody has their own limitations as to what they're willing to share, what they're willing to not share. I would say Mark and I probably share quite a fair bit. We're known within the industry as being a married couple. You know, people know that we have two children together.
And on Instagram and stuff, you'll put up your reels.
Absolutely.
Your reels are always class, you know, whenever you're doing the wee set, you know.
But I'm not exactly the most comfortable person doing that either, but I have to push myself to do that.
But it's such a good thing for couples to go and look at that.
And couples will say to me, you know, I came down to see you because I watched that reel. See that reel that you did at such and such a venue?
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it, and I seen you, and that's why I came down to see you. So it works.
It works, but it's, you know, anything you're popping up as well, it's wedding related. Like there's some that you go on the social media and you go, well, what's that got to do?
It's completely,
you know, relevant to your, like I know if I TikTok and stuff, I always post TikTok, but I'm not on TikTok like going, I get stale here, you know. You know, it really is just work that I'm posting now. Probably if I was doing a bit more of this, I might get more followers and stuff. But I suppose everybody's personality. I'm not somebody that wants to be, you know, I'm not somebody that wants to be sort of, you know, come and watch me do my dishes here today, like, you know what I mean, or you know,
because it's not relevant to your business. You doing your dishes,
that's very much what I do. Like, it's just, you know, anything you're getting on me as just it's business, you know, it's my business and what I'm doing. Like, you know,
it's so true. It's like even ourselves, you know, we obviously show a glimpse of us going on holiday, which we love to do. If we go away for an overnight stay to like say Galgorm, like even our couple at the weekend said, oh geez Mark, I see you stayed at Galgorm quite a bit. We were going away for a few nights after the wedding, and I was like, you know, what a class, you're having an unreal time. And I'm kind of like, it's amazing because you've built up that relationship online, that they're watching your stories and they're getting a feel for you.
But we said as well, that's your especially yourself, that's your personality.
Yeah.
So it is, you know, that's what we were saying before we came on the podcast. Like I said, that, you know, your personality, like you could do, you know, 15 hours to win and you're still sort of running about with a big smile on your face. Like, and there is people you're a people person, do you know what I mean?
And showing that you're authentic as well, you know, like showing, you know, I think is a big thing for couples to be able to actually see that you're a real human being behind the scenes, and you know,
humanises it a bit more. You know, we're mum and dad. When we leave your wedding, we're mum and dad. We go back to our kids, and you know, and I think sometimes you forget that. You book a service and you see us rock in, but alongside that, we strip it all back behind the scenes. We're back doing the dishes and doing school runs.
For wedding vendors watching, this, do you think that's something now that, you know, or somebody that's thinking about getting into the wedding industry? Do you think that's something that they should think about, like, you know, that really, you know, you've got to put yourself out there.
Absolutely. I'd be saying push yourself out of that comfort zone. And I suppose towards the start, especially when I had launched my business and I was really kind of pushing down this, and there were times, and probably still times now, Dale, that I post these reels and I never watch them back, because if I watched them back, I'd probably criticise myself. We're all really, really hard on ourselves. I'd probably criticise myself, look at myself, beat myself up about it, and then I'd want to delete that reel or delete that story or whatever it may be. But actually, I would be saying to all vendors, put yourself out there and forget about it. Post it, get off it. I don't spend hours and hours and hours on social media. People will comment all the time and say, my goodness, Danielle, your social media is brilliant, your videos are great, blah, blah, blah. But I literally make those, post them, come off. I don't spend hours looking and seeing what other people are doing, because you can get in your own head. So for other wedding vendors, I'd say put yourself out.
There is a risk factor, I suppose, and that's what you always think about too, like a risk factor, because we know, like, we'd be on social media and you'd be scrolling through, and some of this sort of this more like influencer world, like we're I think we're the furthest thing from influencers that you're ever going to see. So we are, but you'd be looking and you go, your eyes are batting up, going, oh, that person, and you don't want, like, I never want to come across like that, because I know Jamie, my wife, she goes, social media, I see your face everywhere I look, that's just me. Maybe, I've posted my weekend weds, because I'll tend to do it all, nearly in like one sort of, like I've sort of got something on a Monday afternoon, things have quieted up, and I've done like 5 or 6 weds in a row, and like I'll post thank very much to such to each bride. I'll put up a wee comment just to thank them as such, And
you tell me she's not sitting gushing at those videos. There's my hobby. Oh.
No, she's going, sick there is again, like,
Sick like that.
Coming up, and then I'm posting my other stuff that I'm doing throughout the week. So I suppose you've got to think that too. That's always something that makes me really nervous, because I always think, there's people be looking and going, even with me doing so much with wedding help, I think there's people be looking and going, there he comes again. Is that what you'd be thinking, Peter, whenever you're editing everything down? You'd be thinking,
but I think,
there he is, like, I have to look at his face again and edit these videos. But
I think, Dale, that regardless, though, there's always going to be people out there who criticise you. There's always, like, when you put yourself out there, I'm sure there are people who watch my videos and go, oh my word, she's an absolute melter. But at the end of the day, I'm not there to attract those people to book me. So the way I look at it, I post these things and I think to myself, do you know what? If somebody doesn't like it, what's the worst that's going to happen? And I think that's the thing. You just got to put yourself out there. I kind of get this from Mark, because Mark has this amazing attitude to life where he's like, who cares? Like, who actually cares? And when you scale it all back, like, what is the worst that's going to happen? Somebody's going to say, oh, look at her.
Too, I think,
it's
women, the men too, there's a big doubt, because, like I know even like Jamie sings and stuff, and like, she'd be saying, God, no, I'm not going to post a video of me singing or so. Like, she'd be doing wee videos in a minute and stuff for a second. But I think women do think a bit different too. Like I don't really care too much. Like, do you know what I mean?
It all boils down to vulnerability. Reason being, I try even instilling this in my 8-year-old daughter Scarlett, and when we go on holiday, I will be the first one. I'll make a tit of myself on stage. They're looking for dads to do something like do a mad dance on the dance floor. And I mean, I haven't even had a drink at this stage. I don't drink a lot actually when I'm on holiday. And I'll be the one getting up and doing that. And Scarlett's like, she's always sitting there like, I would not be my worst nightmare. And I'm like, why? Why would it be? Because what's the worst that's going to happen? Well, a load of people in the room are going to be laughing, going, look, your dad there, he's an absolute rocket. He's getting on there, he's skidding across the dance floor. And it's I kind of do it to give her a wee bit of like life education, just to say, listen, nobody cares. I get up and do karaoke, I can't sing a note.
There was a holiday and they were doing karaoke, and Mark and I had never done karaoke ever, and we were like, and we had said to Scarlett, oh, you should get, and Scarlett would beat herself up, wouldn't she? And she's a real overthinker, and that kind of, she's just one of those children. And so one thing that we're really trying to push with her is to kind of just put yourself out there. Just take a risk, and we would both be like, let's do it. Because
even like I've been working all around the universities doing shows and stuff. And the young people now, they're so quiet, they're so, everything's, you do worry. Like I think you do worry.
It's a fair judgment, and you just get out of your head with all that stuff, and just enjoy it. And
I think as wedding suppliers, because suppliers will say to me sometimes like, oh, I don't know how you do those things, and those doing your voiceover, and I hate my voice. I hate my voice too.
Aye.
But you know what? Sometimes you just gotta put your big girl pants on, and you've just gotta post it. And you know what? If somebody criticises it behind the scenes, who cares?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not hindered my business, and it's actually really helped my business.
Inspiration for a couple that's getting married in that
absolutely.
venue. Like I always think, you're putting up a post and it'd be just me standing with the couple from that evening, and it's in such and such a venue, and our couple's going, my goodness, he's done my venue, he knows it.
So true.
I maybe should be chatting to him, because I didn't think that he would travel that far, and but now they know that venue that I'm.
But putting your face out there, putting your personality out there, you can certainly have limitations on what you want to do and what you're comfortable with, of course. But absolutely, I think it's the way to go, and I think that's what couples now are looking for. They are looking for personality. They are looking for those faces, and that's what people buy people, and that's so important.
Content should be
it's a brilliant thing. People buy people.
Yeah, so true. Posting content should be like doing bookkeeping. Does anybody enjoy doing that part of your business? No. However, it's a necessity. You have to do it. For me, content is equally as important as that, because if you don't do it, I know for a fact if you go a year and you don't post a piece of content, you're going to be scratching your head the next year going, why is my bookings down?
I always think with photographers, videographers and stuff, you have the content.
Yeah.
It's there.
You have a label.
It's there.
You have the content. Like I always...
Whereas I have to create my content, that's not what I get handed. Mark creates these incredible images, and he's able to kind of showcase those all the time.
I always find that well difficult, too. I need to get more on that, or be, get the sort of stuff that follows yourself, because yourself as well. That can be a hard thing in the industry. Feathers help with feathers.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is if you're working in a wedding or feather, if you can't share. Which is, if the couple allow it, share with the feather. I know you're always well good. If I've setups and stuff, you'll say, here, Dale, I asked that bridegroom. There's pictures of your stuff at that wedding. There's pictures you do the performance. It's so helpful.
Well, that's it. It's one big collaboration from a vendor's point of view. The hair, the makeup, without all that, the flowers, the dress. From the dress shop to the flowers, to the hair, to the makeup, to the suits. Every single person has played a part in that day. The minute they walk into that room, and you're photographed with a decor in the background, that's because the decor person has that sitting pristine and looking incredible. So it's one big, yes, at the end of the day, I'm the person who's producing the images of that, but inside that image could be 8 different vendors' work on show. So of course
we should be helping out or more about that sort of way, especially media. I think content creators are all coming around now as well. Share that content, helping our vendors out, because throughout the day, whether it be an arch set up or something, that arch is owned by somebody, just to help them out in their business as well.
And I think it's fab, having the wedding help community. We've got to know so many other
even the
vendors
and stuff like that.
Through
so
being part of wedding help, I've been able to kind of network with other people that I probably wouldn't see on the day. Definitely. And that kind of thing, and actually being part of that community then allows us to be able to kind of share those things.
It's like a big family. You rock up on the wedding day and you're like, geez, there's 9 vendors who they've booked off the platform, and and it's obviously the amazing thing is when they do the community photographs at the weekend, everybody's got a selfie with 7 different vendors in the photograph. And it's great to see those people.
We're glad to see wedding season not back on.
It's starting to get there. It's starting to ramp up now as we sort of approach April, May time. This is when it goes.
And as we talk about wedding season, the rise of smaller weddings. I'm sure you see it as Celebrant, because that would be, you're seeing all sorts of weddings, but even smaller weddings and stuff.
Well, I think that's the kind of benefit of having a celebrant like me is, I can legally marry you pretty much nearly everywhere.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are couples that are opting for these smaller weddings, and their focus being on their ceremony and it being personalised and still having that gorgeous wedding approach to it things, but it being on a smaller scale. And I experience that all the time. So you've kind of got like the elopement style where it is just the couple and possibly photographer, videographer, and then you've kind of got, you know, the smaller wedding where you will have guests there as well. I recently, you know, married a couple who decided that they were going to convert their family barn into their location for their wedding, and they did everything at home and had food trucks come in, and they, you know, it was on a very, very like low-key kind of style, but that was what they wanted.
It's definitely becoming so well. Like, you know,
definitely.
even I was in Calf Prison on Saturday doing a smaller wedding too, you know, like maybe 45, 50 guests.
It's lovely.
I think they got married in City Hall, and I suppose they're just walking across, standing around there. But I know even we were at the new Grand Central, we done their show around reel for them. They have a room now. It's I don't know if you've seen it. It would be probably around the size of this room, but it's just a big long table for sort of sitting for, you know, 15, 16 people. But it is something, and I suppose find yourself, isn't that right?
I recently married a couple there in Titanic Hotel, and they had, I think it was 14 guests.
Yeah.
And it's because that's what they wanted.
Aye.
And they didn't have a big, you know, and it was absolutely stunning. It was beautiful, and it was totally them. And I think that's the thing. It's a reflection on the couple and what they choose. And some couples want a big grand day, and absolutely do not take away from that, because that's some people, that's their dream and that's what they want to have, and absolutely that's the right route.
But do you find
there's other
a lot of
couples
pressure,
that tend
maybe?
to...
Is there pressures as well in couples at times to deliver that big day? Whenever
I'm finding,
you know, or what's your thoughts on that? Like,
yeah,
you know?
I'm finding when I'm chatting to couples who are actually going down the route of having the smaller wedding, a lot of the time they're choosing to have the smaller wedding because they're feeling the pressure. So they're going, you know what, I'm going against the grain.
Yeah.
I'm feeling the pressure to have this huge big thing, and that's not what we want.
Yeah.
So actually we're going to choose, and we're going against the grain. And I think that's class too, that you have that, you know, option of, I suppose we're both really fortunate in the line of work that we do, that we're still getting bookings for these large weddings, small weddings, in between weddings, elopements.
I'm sort of the same. Even I've definitely seen a rise. Like, you know, even like going to weddings, maybe, and even the hypnotist shows booked, and it's maybe 40 people and stuff. And like I would tell the couples, look, I'll do a bit more magic, so it won't be all hypnosis. I'm sort of, you know, breaking it up a bit, because you're more. I think you're just more personal, like, you know, there's I always say everybody's part of the bridal party at these smaller weddings, so get everybody involved. But I suppose that is the thing, isn't it? Like, you know, it's find yourself, it's not, you know, and don't feel pressured, you know.
Yeah. The end of the day, I always say it doesn't matter if you have 2 guests or 402, you know, they still need entertained. Yeah. They still need, you know, amazing photographs. They're still there. It's a different dynamic, of course, but they're still there to have one of the most incredible occasions in their life. I remember doing a wedding last year and the year before. Denise and John, who travelled over from America, and they held their day in the Culloden. They had 9 guests. A couple travelled up from Cork, family, friends, and the rest came over from America. And that turned out to probably be my favourite wedding of the year. It was lovely. It was kind of like, I felt like it was sort of friends of the family. You know, they said, stick around, Mark, have dinner, which I gladly obliged to. And it was brilliant. It was just fantastic, and it was so personal.
We're becoming a location too for destination weddings.
Absolutely.
Huge.
Absolutely.
Do you find that with the Celebrant side of things?
Yeah, I've been getting more and more inquiries and a lot of bookings for like kind of elopements and things like that. And you know, I always go back to those couples and say it's really important to speak to a celebrant, and it's kind of a tip for couples that are thinking of eloping and that kind of thing, or are from this country but just wanting, you know, the two of them to have an elopement. Elopement doesn't necessarily mean you have to have gone away for your wedding. It could just be that the two of you are going to go, or 2 best friends with you or whatever. But one tip that I always say to couples is to check in with the celebrant that they have experience doing elopements, because me conducting an elopement and me conducting a wedding are 2 very different things.
Go and just explain that too for you know, because for people watching that, then they're probably saying to themselves, what is the difference, or what is it? So go and break that down, like elopement. Explain
and what
just
that
as
looks like.
much as possible, like, you know.
So when somebody books me for a wedding and there's like 100 guests there, I'm conducting and writing a script that's tailored to present to other people, if that makes sense. So I'm presenting the couple's story. Yes, I still talk to my couple within that, but I'm also telling their story to other people. So there's a different way. Yeah, there's a different way of presenting.
Guests, say audiences.
Yeah.
Their guests.
You're nearly like an actor or an actress in that scenario.
But you are playing a part.
Absolutely.
Like,
but I'm presenting to other people who are in that room. Whereas when you book me as an elopement celebrant, yes, effectively what I'm doing the same thing. I'm marrying you. I'm doing the legal, side of things, all those kind of things, if that's what a couple choose to do. But you're not presenting to other people. You're talking to a couple, and that is a very different way of delivery than it is when I'm delivering to a room full of 150 guests. So the way that I have to write and the way that I deliver my ceremonies is a completely different thing. So that's one thing that I will always go back to my couples and say, if you're checking out other celebrants and you're going down that route, always ask. And I'm the chair of the Humanist Society and I'll always speak to our celebrants, and they'll ask questions and things like that, and I'll always say the same to them as well. The way that you conduct yourself in a ceremony with 2 people or 4 people or 6 people in comparison to a wedding with 150 people in that room is very, very different. So having that experience and having that knowledge is so important.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's a completely different dynamic altogether. I even know when I've done elopements with couples travelling over from America, and it's only been the 2 of them, that I've turned out to be the witness and the videographer's been the other witness. And with me,
that's crazy too, isn't it? Like
it's bonkers. Like, it's something you never think when you first started this job. You're like, I'm actually going to be witnessing somebody's legal documentation and signing my name on their behalf.
My goodness.
It's crazy. But alongside that, half the time I'm like, right guys, we're having the time and wait for sunset taking place at maybe the Giant's Causeway, so we'll call in and grab something to eat, and I'm sitting having dinner with these guys, and I'm like, this is so weird but amazing. What a privilege. You're sitting there, they're both suited and booted,
but again, that's back to personality. You can do that. You have the personality to just sit and do that. Like, it's no problem.
It's so true, and it's awesome. Like, I love it. I genuinely do. And I always say when a couples come over from America, you feel very patriotic in regards to they love Ireland, they love the accents. One of the few times I can maybe let this Belfast accent run wild because they eat it up, but I love their enthusiasm. Like, it could be lashing down outside and they're still looking at the beauty of it. They're not going, oh my goodness, it's raining. Whereas you asked a couple locally to come out in the rain, they'd be looking at you going, clear off, Mark.
But even at that as well, like the destination weddings as well, like I've seen bus loads coming in. They Carber Castle. Like, we were down doing a show reel there as well, Carbra, and there was full 52-seater bus of Americans had been brought in from, I suppose, Dublin Airport, took to Carver Castle, get married there and stuff, and they're having a normal wedding as such. They flew over all their guests. I know I done one as well last year in Harvey's Point. They flew in all the guests, and it's amazing, isn't it?
It really has. Like, as I say, last year, off the top of my head, I done 3 weddings where they weren't elopements. They were all 40 plus guests. 2 of them took place in Belle Isle Estate in County Fermanagh, and the other one was in Bellingham Castle in County Louth. And they were incredible. They were awesome. No connection whatsoever to the country. It wasn't like they had grandparents here. You always sometimes think, it's just they dreamt of getting married in an Irish castle, and that was the only.
And it must be for them as well. I suppose that the planning process must be difficult.
Yeah, that's it. You're doing it from 4,000 miles away.
But we did the same. We went away to Mexico and we got married. So we had a destination wedding ourselves. So
you're putting your trust in the experts, aren't you?
How did you find that? How did you find that from your point of view of the, how many guests and stuff? If you don't mind me asking.
So we decided. So we decided when we were getting married that we were going to go away, and initially we'd kind of thought that it would probably be the 2 of us and maybe about 6 to 8 people maximum, and it turned out to be 37. So
seriously,
so we didn't even do formal invites. We literally said, we're going away to Mexico to get married. If you want to come and make it your summer holiday, come with us.
Well, that was it. I proposed proposed to Danielle in September 2012 in Mexico, and I always remember joking on the area that I proposed is actually turned out to be where they host their weddings, and at that venue obviously there's different areas you can get married, but I always remember joking on afterwards saying, tell you what, it'd be class going back there, wouldn't it, to do it.
Did you use both of that in your head? Like, did you have that in your head?
So I think had you have asked me before we got engaged, I probably would have just stayed at home and had a wedding at home. And then when it came time we got engaged and we were kind of talking about weddings and where we would, and with Mark being in the wedding industry, there's all this pressure as to where you're going to go and what suppliers you're going to book and all that kind of thing.
So that's why you never booked me. Don't feel bad.
But there was a bit of pressure on their deal as to, where's Mark Barnes going to have his wedding? And, who's Mark Barnes going to have to photograph his wedding, and who's, all this kind of thing. So we talked about it, and then we thought, let's go away. We didn't have any elderly grandparents that couldn't travel. We didn't have any restrictions like that. And we thought, do you know what? Should we just go away and do this and come home and have a big party? So that's what we did. And so, as I say, we left it very informal with people. My mum was joking on, being like, but we need to give our family like invites. And I was like, no, we don't. No, we don't. Like, you just let them know we're going away. This is a month that we're going, because
if they want to go.
Mark essentially just had to book a month off in his diary, work-wise, and we didn't know.
That was the dearest part of the wedding planning.
Yeah, was him taking a summer month off.
Did you find that hard, like, because everything that goes on at a wedding, from photographer, did you have any of that, or was that?
We so they pretty much, we trusted them with a lot. Like, we just said, it's in their hands and let's go. The one thing that I was probably like a little bit more fussier on was like my dress. I wanted to get married in a proper wedding dress. Lo and behold, we're in that heat, but I wanted to get married in a proper wedding dress, and then I had a second dress, of course, that I changed into. So I wanted something a bit lighter that I could enjoy and dance the night away without being absolute, because Mexico is hot. But I wanted to get married, so my dress for me was probably, we talk about couples having different priorities. My dress was my priority. Mark's priority, of course, was photography. He definitely, that was his thing. Did you not find that
quite hard? Because who was a photographer?
Yeah, it's a great friend of mine, Sam McDermott.
Oh, right, so your photographer came up.
So we flew Sam over, because there was a photographer included in our package. So, with when you book abroad, and they have these kind of like wedding packages, and they did. And there was another a Mexican photographer there who was photographing during our ceremony. We could have paid for him to have done more, because the package just included the ceremony, but of course we didn't, because we flew in a photographer and we flew in a videographer as well, to capture some moments and stuff. So we had a ball, and I mean, I suppose we have been asked this question before, about booking a wedding abroad and how does that look, and for couples who are maybe looking to book in Northern Ireland and kind of from outside of Northern Ireland. And my biggest top tip to anybody is, if you're booking to go away somewhere to get married, you kind of got to let go of a little bit of control and trust the experts that you're booking, because I had to trust the people over there. You've
had on it, because you can't really, you're just hoping that everything
now we live in a more social media era, and that, like, back then when we got married, we're married coming up 11 years this year, and back then you didn't really have the reviews, you didn't have the photographs online that you could look at, so it literally was a case that we arrived and had a meeting and we selected what we wanted and away we went.
It's not that long ago, but you probably didn't, there wasn't as many people would have done, like 11 years ago compared to now, because I know, like, last year I went out and done one in Italy, but like, I was chatting the venue out in Italy, and they're probably doing 50 Irish weddings a year.
Absolutely.
This venue was very much Irish weddings.
That's their audience they're targeting.
That's their audience they're targeting. But 11 years ago, that might not have been.
Whereas now you can jump online and see. So, if you are from outside of this country and you're thinking of booking a venue here, you can do virtual tours. You can do, there's lots of videos, content to watch. If you're looking at a photographer, you can go on and see. Whereas we didn't know who that photographer was going to be. So that's why we were.
Couples that have been sort of, from your area or something that you can
link in with and things like that. And I think a lot of, we're fortunate in Northern Ireland, we are a small community, and with the help of the Wedding Help platform as well, you know, we are also here to help. So I would have some couples that contact me and say, you know, we're wanting to elope, but this is kind of what our plans. Have you any ideas on what I can do here? And I'll be like, absolutely, like, let's talk through it. And I'm almost essentially helping plan their wedding with them. But I think we have the contacts and we have the friendships and the relationships within the industry to be able to do that.
Like yesterday we were away doing reels and meeting up with businesses yesterday, and one of them was Logan's executive travel until now, do the buses and stuff. Yeah. And they were taking us, showing us around these buses and stuff, and they had like a 9-seater bus, and I was saying, what you know, the destination weddings use this a lot, where the bride, you know, the bus was beautiful, bride and groom could be on it, plus all their 7 guests or 8 guests or whatever it was. And I thought, my goodness, doesn't that show how, you know, and it made Northern Ireland look very cosmopolitan of us, you know, like, but it just shows it is all there. And I suppose if you're chatting to a celebrant, you're a great point of contact, because you know you can confide and you get all that information and stuff for couples as well, isn't that right?
So true. Like even there in December, I had done a wedding for, once again, an American couple, Kathleen and Nicholas. They flew over to have their wedding in Belle Isle Estate, and they had their ring bearer was an owl from a company in Northern Ireland, and then they done a bird show after, so it was incredible. I thought in my head, I'm going, gee, I don't know what way this is going to pan out for a wedding audience, but it was unreal. You know, they were doing a lot of sort of tricks where they got a couple of guests from the crowd and then they held their arms out really tight and the bird would have flew amongst it. And I think for a lot of people, they were like, you know, that's a memory that they're always going to have from that day. And for me, I was like, this is awesome. Can we do this more? And from a photography perspective, the reactions, like it was a bird that flew through and the wing flopped a girl in the face, and I just
you probably thought you were Laurel Parky again.
I know. Usually I'm walking about in shorts at that stage. A bit different down
it's a bit different
in Fermanagh in December, you know.
Do you know what I found out? Like I done that one in Italy last year, and the only thing was maybe equipment and stuff. So you can't bring your equipment. You're bringing you're bringing what you can get in the case. And I don't know, have you done any abroad?
We've done a brave few in September.
We did a Portugal wedding there in September. It was beautiful.
Similar to what you said.
How do you find that with equipment and stuff?
That's the stressful part, is you're having to pack everything into a suitcase that has to be carried onto the plane, because if you know what our crew are like when they're loading cases on, you couldn't put, you know, £20,000 worth of camera equipment in for them.
I literally but what gear I can get on their backpack
to bring with you.
It's a nightmare, because you're then, you know, you're going and you're just hoping that the PA that you'll be going through is half decent.
You put the trust in someone else.
You're really relying. Now, to be fair, it wasn't bad. It wasn't the best thing. You know, it wasn't like using your own, but it got through the job, and you have to just put a bit more effort and a bit more work. Like, you know.
But as you say, the places now that people are booking abroad are phenomenal. Like that one in Portugal that we were at,
for a lot of,
you know, catered so well. And even for their ceremony, it was an outdoor ceremony. And at home, I have like my professional Bose sound system and mic system that I would use for outdoor ceremonies. But you're going abroad, I can't bring that with me, so I'm relying then on their equipment. And actually, when I turned up, it was fab and it was great. Maybe not as crystal clear as what mine would be at home, but it was great. But I think the options and the venues now abroad are incredible, and they do have those things in place
they know
now.
Too, because they're doing so many. You know, they've got it. And I suppose like anywhere, like, you know, as well, you know, they know that they're doing so many. Just get it all in place and be ready for it. You know,
absolutely.
You know, we were talking to the content creators, who were 2 fellas, married couple, they were absolute legends.
Amazing.
And they were saying they actually turned out they met in Cork working together. Fell in love there, and then one's from Brazil, the other's from Portugal, and then they moved back to Portugal.
My goodness.
And they tend to do a lot of the weddings, and they said to me, Mark, we're dealing with so many Irish couples here on a daily basis. Like they said, that week that we were there in September, there was 3 couples from Belfast that week alone going to that same venue. I'm like, it's not unbelievable. You don't know that's happening.
Maybe they do advertising.
That should just show you that's what
they're doing a
I mean, the venue, the planners did have a chat with us about would it be reasonable to bring you guys over again and things like that, which was amazing.
But following year already. It was incredible. It really was. I can see why.
Again, it's one of them real personal things, because I know the one I done, you really become part of the guests.
Absolutely.
I think they had maybe about 70 guests maybe at the wedding, but you really do become part of it.
I mean, our couple...
It was over a couple of days, this one.
Yeah.
And I arrived on the night before, and then I was doing the show the next day, and then I was on the,
such a party atmosphere, isn't it?
Our couple were having a lovely day too, and that was going to be our full day, and then we were flying home the following day. And like, I mean, Mark and I are never away from our children, like never. When we go on holiday, our kids are always with us. So this was the first that we were going to be away, just us as well. So when they were having their day too, they had invited us prior to, the whole thing, had said, we're having a day too, but listen, we understand that you're getting away without your children too, so if you want to take that day just yourselves. So we originally had planned that day that would just be us. We'd chill by the pool, we'd make the most of being baby free and that kind of thing. And actually we ended up having so much fun at the wedding with them, as you say, becoming part of that. Like we were like part of the family. Like we really were, and they were so special that halfway through the second day, when we knew that they were going to be getting ready for their day two, which was starting at like 6 o'clock in the evening, we both looked at each other and went, should we just go get ready and go? And we did, and we went to their day two. I ended up Irish dancing. Mark ended up doing karaoke. We had the absolute best time living our best lives. It wasn't even karaoke night, but he was singing. Like, we had the best night and the best crack. And I think that's the thing. Like, you get involved with your couples. You get to know your couples. You get, like we do. We put everything into what we do, and we love what we do. And I think that really shows with our relationships with our couples too.
Yeah. 2026 trends. Have you seen any, or what's? I don't think you really, you don't really see trends. They sort of, it happens, it comes, it goes. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's weird. This is a question. I actually said this to Danielle. Trends is one of those questions I always sort of struggle with, and I suppose trends is, you're always sort of keeping up with the Joneses by watching social media and seeing what everybody else has, or what the incoming thing is to have at your wedding day. And
that can nearly be the worst thing too, as well, to do, because you're not actually getting what you want. You're watching somebody else and saying, you're not. Do you know what I'm saying by that? It's not
like,
really...
I suppose when you say what's trends I've seen maybe the last 5 years, audio guest books, it became the thing that I see at a lot of weddings now, where you can leave a recorded message on an old school telephone, which I love the idea of. There's pros and cons to it. When I was sold that idea many moons ago, I remember it was, a relative leaving a lovely message, and in years to come you're playing that with a few glasses of wine, deep, crying your eyes out, listening to their voice. That part there is gripping. However, listening to your mate half tour telling you, saying all sorts of that's where it gets a bit dangerous. That's where you're like, I don't want to hear that ever again, let alone replaying it in a few years' time. So I suppose those kind of things. Obviously you see neon and the sort of floral ring arches and stuff that you wouldn't have seen at a wedding 5 years ago. So I suppose in trends you'll see it a lot more influenced in decor. I suppose when it comes to photography, I suppose from my perspective, you've seen a lot of change to editorial style of photography, which sort of features a lot more like magazine, direct flash, kind of Vogue, that pains me to even say that word, Vogue-esque photography. Now don't get me wrong, I will say to couples if they come to me and say, Mark, can we do a wee bit of that? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it, not a problem, because I'm a yes man. If you want it and it makes you happy, I'm 100%. It's not my bag, and I'll make that quite clear to them and say, that's not my usual vibe. However, by all means, if we want to have a bit of crack in the evening, you want 5 or 10 minutes, that we'll certainly do it. But yeah, I suppose that's trends. I'll always say to them, listen, if that accounts for such a small percentage of your photos and you love that, I'm happy. However, I do think in 10 years' time, you might pull those photographs out and cringe.
It's going to be something you go, my goodness, what were we thinking of?
I chat to friends who are doing this 20 plus years, and when I first got into the industry, the biggest trend, thank God it has never resurged again, although it could happen, is colour spotting. God, I cringe back at my 2004, 5, 6, 7 era. I think it ended about then, where you used to have a black and white image and the flowers were in colour. Oh, what was I doing?
I remember him teaching that to me when we were boyfriend and girlfriend.
But even sort of back to what you were saying there about the sort of, you know, the folk and stuff like that. Do you think a lot of that's down to like Pinterest and you know, seeing stuff that can really be a bad thing too, I think, in a way.
It can be. It's always driven. What I say is the biggest driver in it, and I know this from even talking to friends in America who would do celebrity weddings.
Yeah.
It's based off celeb weddings. So in other words, if Brooklyn Beckham gets married, if Justin Bieber gets married, what was his photographer doing? We call spade a spade. I sometimes look at the photographs from those weddings and go, geez, I think they're bang average. And I've made that quite vocal online before, so if this blows up and their photographer comes looking for me, that's fine. I'm happy to take that in the chin. But it's amazing.
You should look at the camera.
But, you know, that is what drives it. All of a sudden, if they're doing that style of photography, if someone sees Justin Bieber running with hand in hand with his bride and he's scooping her up in his arms, you can better believe that for the next 2 years you're going to see that trend happening at weddings. You know, it's the way we're built. I know when I was in high school, whatever haircut David Beckham had,
I knew it.
But what football boots he wore, when you went out to play a football match, 80%, and it was he was an influencer before influencers became a thing.
Yeah.
But if he had a mohawk, you went into school the following week, you could have got suspended for that all the same. But if he bleached his hair blonde, you can bet everybody else bleached their hair blonde.
I think there's it definitely. I don't know. It can be a bit. You know, the whole you know, it's again back to that whole influency sort of thing, and that, you know, buying into trends, maybe not the way to go, or
no. Like I'm seeing within ceremonies that people are kind of going down the route of, you know, like one of the biggest trends that's been kind of happening is, you know, people recording a message prior to the ceremony and then it being played before the bride walks down. It's a big thing on social media. Nice. So, you know, the brides maybe recorded a message saying, you know, Mark, stand up tall, I'm about to come down, and a nice wee message or whatever. Or sometimes they use their children in it, and it's and you know, and it's nice. Touching and things like that. That seems to be something that has kind of come in, and more recently I actually did a wedding there in Manor House, and that was, you know, the bride chose to do a message for her groom to be, and that was lovely. So things like that, from a ceremony point of view, I would say there's still like things that
I think that's nice and it's personal.
There's personal approaches to your wedding, and I think if you are personalising it and making it for you, then I think it works, and you'll not look back with regrets on that. Whereas there's some things that you probably are following a trend because somebody else said that was cool, and maybe in 10, 15 years time it's not.
Like even entertainment, I find that, you know, big time, you know,
transport massively.
You know, like I have brides that contact me and say, oh, can you do such and such as well? Do you know, or, you know, maybe they booked up with this show, and can we change that now to, like, you know, a bingo or something? Well, and you're sort of going to yourself, you're not going to get the, you know, I can do that, but it's not going to be, you know, is what, you know, I think a lot of people are going on Instagram, they're seeing that, they're going, I need that at my wedding.
And there are some things, you know, like I had a bride before, Dale, that asked me to do something that she had seen online, and it wouldn't align with me. It would, you know, it just wasn't something that I would do. And so basically this bride had contacted me and said, when I get to the top of the aisle with my dad, can you get a selfie stick out and take a photograph of me with you at the top and all the rest of it with the guests? And I know there probably are some celebrants out there who do that kind of thing. But my response back to her was, listen, if you want something like that, I don't think I'm your celebrant. And she kind of was like, oh, I don't think that was what she thought. And I said, for no other reason, I value the beauty in your ceremony. And that moment, she was walking up the aisle with her daddy, and that moment is so special. That moment can't be redone when you're walking up the aisle with your daddy. And I said to her, you're walking up in that special moment, having that moment with your daddy, you're getting to the top of the aisle, you're going to meet your husband-to-be beside you, and you're all emotional. And at that stage, you want me to go, right, everybody, let's get in for a selfie. That turns it into a funny thing about me and not about the couple.
Do you know what? You could come across, for all our people watching that, I think you could come across.
Absolutely.
Is that something she does?
Is that something she does?
And it was only when I explained it to her, and I said, you're going to have this real special moment, and without sounding rude, it's going to be completely taken over by the fact that I'm then going to want to pull out this selfie stick. It's not my style. It's not my vibe.
It's like the same thing with entertainment. there's stuff, and you're going,
yeah.
you know, I don't want it to be about.
And then you've other couples that'll be like, Danielle, we want to try something new. Can we do this? I'm like, absolutely, I am up for. Yeah, this year, maybe a little bit of a trend. In this last year, I have had a couple of couples who have wanted to have kind of like a sing along in their ceremony, where they've chosen like a really funny song or like a real hip song to sing. And I've been like, oh my goodness, when they first approached me about this, I'm like, either this is going to go down like a lead balloon, or this is going to be absolutely awesome. And like, I am not a singer, so I'm at the front leading into this song, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, please go well.
You're both going to do karaoke, you know. This is part of the thing today.
It was absolutely amazing. It went down so well. The guests all got involved. Everybody was dancing, singing in their ceremony. It was so lighthearted. It was amazing. Yeah. But again, that's something that suits some couples but wouldn't suit everybody. So I think when you look at trends and you look what's in trend, what's out of trend, all those kind of things, I do as a couple think that you just have to go with what relates to you, because it is about you. Don't try to fit into some other mold. Do your own thing. That's why there's choice in weddings. Do your own thing.
And do what suits you and suits your personality. Don't put yourself under pressure, I suppose.
Absolutely.
There's some trends that have become sort of permanent fixtures. And you even said about entertainment there, like one of the things that I never seen at a wedding up until about 6 or 7 years ago is the emphasis on the meal entrance song, like how that's become. Become as important as the first dance now.
Like I've couples now. Like it's become so popular. Like I would do my after meal show. A lot of couples now book me to do their MC for bringing them in
for the entrance. That was never a thing before.
Never.
It was never a thing.
Like, do you know what? It's good. It is good, but it's not for everybody either.
Yeah. No, once again,
there's you know. That's why for me to say stuff, or book it if you want to book it. But what I'm saying is, make sure your crowd is that crowd that's going to be,
up for it,
up on the tables.
Absolutely.
Is your crowd a good vibe crowd? Don't be looking at a video that I've posted on my social media and think, oh, I want him to do that too, because that looks so much. It's maybe not. Don't feel pressure to do that. I suppose.
You don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that. And is that it's not a bad thing. Do you know what I mean?
No, because you do. I actually had a couple in when we recently and said, Mark, that meal entrance song part is my worst nightmare. Like, we just want somebody coming in and congratulations to such and such, stand up, give them a clap, and they literally walk to the top table, sit down, and everybody's ready to rock in.
There's not people. There's people that's not just they don't like I know for myself. I would be embarrassed, if I would be embarrassed sort of nearly going through some of that, there's people really like that and they just want that party and they want that vibe, definitely book it, but it's each their own, and again, it's your own preference, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's a bit like I was about to say, the other trend that's became a permanent fixture, I'd say maybe going back this last 10 years, is like first looks with parents, whether it be with dad, whether it be with mum and dad, bridesmaids. There's so many times now you're asking, do you want to do a reveal with your bridesmaids? Do you want to do a first look with dad? And for me, as the dad of 2 daughters, I absolutely love that moment, because the dads are standing nervously and anxiously outside the door waiting on the bride, maybe just stepping into her dress. And then when she comes out, he's crying his eyes out. And from a photography perspective,
that's class. It's personal. Like it's, you can't
repeat that moment.
You're not going to get that at all.
Such an important moment and such an incredible milestone. And to see, a proud parent standing there crying their eyes out moments before they're about to walk down the aisle. So I suppose for me, those trends that have came in have become like a permanent fixture, and have nearly slotted into now part of the structure of what would be your normal wedding day as such. I always say we get a lot of influences from America. Whatever's happening in America now, you'll look 5, 10, 15 years time and some of them will creep in the other.
I was chatting to a photographer. He was saying he was out at like one of them expo sort of things out in America, and they were saying like they're doing their photos the day before.
Yeah,
and then,
that's so true. That would have been a big thing in the Asian communities, where they would have flew to their favourite city. So say they were getting married in London, then they went to Paris for a full photo shoot a week before the wedding, had all their photographs, or maybe a couple of weeks before the wedding, and then so on the wedding day, when you rock into the wedding day, there's photos of them all over the wall, and you're kind of like, well, the photos of, that's a big thing. Once again, I always say some people may go, it's a bit strange, but if that becomes the norm, and there's nothing
Do
strange
you
about it.
think you could see something like that, like in 20 years' time here?
Well, I've done it once again with that couple, Kathleen and Nicholas, in December at Belle Isle. It was quite funny. They really lucked out on their weather. It was 12th of December, and Kathleen said to me, "Mark, we would love to do a first look." And I said, "What time are you thinking?" She was we were back and forward, and I was kind of creating a bit of a timeline for her. And she said to me about like 8:30 in the morning. I was like, "Doesn't get bright till about 9:30, so we'll pull that forward." And that's once again where you need somebody to kind of guide you. And I said, right, we'll kind of go for 9:30, 10. There's no pressures. The day's your own. We'll have a bit of crack and we'll do your first look. And we done it out on the pier towards the jetty. The sun was splitting the trees. You could not make it up. It was about 11 degrees for December in Seine, and it was beautiful. And we done altar couple portraits pre-ceremony, which in America is quite normal. To do. So it just means then after their ceremony, the drinks reception is their own. They're not, all we're going to do is focus on a few family photographs, a few wedding party photographs, and having the crack with the bridesmaids and the groomsmen. And then realistically, you get to enjoy the rest of your time with all your friends and family. So it cuts out, what they would class as cocktail hour. You get to be there and be present for it all.
Could you see the sort of that family thing being,
done it, you know what, I've maybe done it with about 6 couples in Northern Ireland. And once again, actually 2 of our best friends done it, and for them it suited those guys perfectly because they're quite shy. A couple of
days beforehand or something?
No, they done it on the morning again, before any guest had landed in. We went out to Benone Beach, we'd done their couple shoot out there, and then they had their wedding in Drina Estate. So by the time they got it feels quite strange from my point of view, because after the ceremony I'm so used to going, right, we'll go out for a few photos shortly, guys, let's enjoy a drink, have a mingle, and we'll go out for some photos. But at that stage I'm like, you're here, we'll do a few families soon, we'll do a few wedding party photographs, and then just enjoy yourselves and go with the flow. So there is I can see pros and cons. I don't think it'll ever catch on here. I think there's too many traditionalists that go, it's a bit weird.
A lot of people want the first time that their partner see them be when they are walking down the aisle, and I can totally understand that too.
But it is quite funny because I've done those first looks with people before,
but then
and they're still cried their eyes out at the aisle moment. I'm like, you seen her an hour ago, what are you on?
But then there is something to be said as well, because with hotels or something, if you're getting married, like A and you're going to B, some of them's not arriving in the hotels till maybe 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and it's just rushing there.
Straight in for that.
You know what I mean. So there maybe is something to be said about that in a way too. Like, you know.
It just means then you need to be ready really early.
Plug yourself there.
But it's so true though, that thing about America. I can remember going to the World Photography Conference in Las Vegas in 2017. And once again, I was kind of picking the brains of a lot of wedding photographers over there, being like, where do you find you get most of your business? Where do you get your work? And at the time it blew my mind, because they were like, 90% of our business comes through Instagram. And at that stage there was nobody at home getting weddings through Instagram. But I was lucky because I went home with that knowledge going, right, I'm going to start putting my eggs on kind of the Instagram basket.
Funny, I was chatting to the photographer one night in Donegal, and we were chatting, where are you getting your leads out of? He goes, it's all Instagram deal, and he was already done a course of some sort. And he goes, and he brought up one of his images. I looked at it, and I was like, is that 30,000 likes in that image? He's all, most of them sort of, every image was like, I was all, how do you get built on Instagram like that,
So I was fortunate enough, I have a decent following on Instagram, and I put it down to listening to those guys back then, so going back 9 years ago. I was on Instagram at that stage, but I just really ramped it up. It's a bit like, the infancy of TikTok now. I don't really use TikTok a lot, but I suppose if I went to America and somebody says we're getting 90% of our work through TikTok, I would maybe make that jump to go right. And there's a lot.
I know the man. See if you're TikTok king here produced our show today, so we do.
Yeah, that's it. He's got a reputation out there. That
you can check him out. News with Peter.
Yeah, that's it. TikTok, country's #1 news presenter.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Right, the budget. We talked about budget. The budget reality check. What does a realistic Northern Ireland wedding cost in 2026? That's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, even I got married. Get ready for a bit ahead of work here, Peter. I got married 4 or 5 years ago.
Can't even say a year, so you can't. Go on, commit yourself, say the year.
No, I'm not going to.
Now you're trying to sleep in the spare room.
You're going to have to edit this at some point.
You got in like an AI voiceover.
what I'm going to say about that, but the prices of meals. I was chatting to a bride who booked. We got married in Harvey's Point, and I think at that time what we were paying per head to what I was chatting to a bride recently, and
scary.
But it's not Harvey's Point everywhere. So every hotel, and I suppose it's just the cost of.
The cost of living has went up so much. I suppose from a venue point of view, the cost of produce and the cost of it
definitely
increased.
per head now is so it's a big thing. Look, I think brides, weddings have they are expensive, and it's one of them things.
So true. Like from the pandemic, the cost of living, like you can't, it's not apples and oranges. You can't compare what a 2019 wedding is now to a 2026 or 2027 wedding. Because the price of everything, like a weekly shop in 2019, if it was £80, it's now £150. It's practically doubled. Same with house prices, same with everything. It's weird. Anytime I spoke about this recently to a couple of wedding vendors, and I said one of my annoyances are, you go on and you Google what is your typical UK wedding cost, and it always seems to come around £22,000. And in my head, I'm like, that is so unrealistic. Really, speaking, because I said to someone, your typical 100 guest at a 4-star plus venue, with all the trimmings. In other words, you've got your celebrant, your photographer, your videographer, your hair, your makeup, your band, your DJ. Without even going into anything OTT, I would be shocked if you've changed of £30,000.
Have we got the breakdown, or could that be put up on the screen now?
Yeah, where is it?
Where was it?
Remember, do you ever do that for
I
her?
never actually did it, but
did you not?
Yeah.
Nah.
I've kind of mapped it out in my head, because obviously I'm always curious. I always like to ask questions when couples are planning. How much is it for that hotel ahead? And I also like to do my own research, because there's some places out there where people go, "Oh, you getting married there? That's well expensive." You kind of be like, "It's actually not. It's incredible value." And then there's some places that would equally shock you and go, "Is that how much that is a head?" But listen, once again, it all boils down to priorities and what's important to those guys. And the venue is your biggest cost, and your food.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that, as Mark touched on there about priorities, when it comes to weddings, some people prioritise their dress and they'll pay a clean fortune for that, but then they want to scale back on the cost of their photographer, their cost of their celebrant or whatever. And it comes down to priorities when it comes to weddings. There's some couples that will book a more budget friendly venue, but we'll have it decked out to the high hills, and we'll
do you know what, that's each their own.
It is, and there's no right or wrong way to do it.
It's not for us to advise or to say, you should be spending most of your money on the venue, entertainment. You spend your money, if you want, to spend most of your money on photography, and you want 10 albums along with your, if you want to do that, that is your thing.
And a lot of suppliers, are set fees. Like, I'm a set fee as a celebrant, so it doesn't matter whether somebody books me for a low budget wedding venue or they book me for the fanciest place in the whole entire world. It makes no difference to me, in the sense of I still have to go and do my job, and do my job really well. So it doesn't matter to me as such. And I just think, out there, that when couples are kind of looking at their own wedding, they just need to prioritise what is important to them, and have an overall figure in mind, and then work from that. But I think
that's important too. Set a figure.
That's it.
And do you know what? Realistic expectations.
100%. There's, because you do see on the Wedding Hill platform.
Chris uses that all the time. I'll say we're going to set realistic but it's very good, to have that. I suppose think about that too. There's, if you have a budget mind, you're going to get that for your budget.
Well, I think you do see sometimes on the Wedding Help Facebook group and stuff that, there's couples maybe saying, I'm looking for a photographer that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, or, things like that. And I think, well, what is the cost of an arm and a leg? When you're going to say things like that, I think you need to be realistic about what you're saying. And, like, we have a budget of, or, I'm wanting to get inquiries of people to find out what kind of budget.
There might be somebody with that budget.
Absolutely.
Like what I touched on earlier, you can have dinner at Wetherspoons, but you can have dinner at the Michelin Star. You can also have dinner in the mid-range place, and that's not to say those places don't serve a purpose and create.
No,
Absolutely.
definitely not.
There's different vendors out there with different budgets and different costs for different reasons, and I think that's the thing that we all just need to be mindful of as well as suppliers, of not comparing ourselves to each other in that way. Of I know there's plenty of celebrants that charge a lot less than what I do. There's also celebrants that charge more than what I do. But I don't compare myself to them.
No.
I charge what I charge, and I charge that for a reason.
Because you feel that's what your service is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if I'm not within someone's budget, there will be somebody who's within their budget.
The exact same. Like it's it definitely
Yeah.
is. Suppliers, red flags couples should watch for, and red flags suppliers see in couples.
Reviews.
Yeah,
We
well,
touched on it before
yeah.
about reviews. I think it's a huge red flag for any customer or any couple looking at any venue, any supplier across the industry. If they haven't got reviews, for me that would be a major red
they
flag.
haven't turned off, like Facebook pages. If they don't have a reviews tab, it's been turned off. That's
Yeah.
the harsh reality, and there's
Yeah.
usually a reason why it's turned off.
Yeah.
So it kind of disguises the 1-star reviews that have maybe been given. Whereas with Google, you can't turn them off, thankfully.
What about suppliers? Should we be looking for anything, or do you
I was going to say, well, I suppose sometimes you don't find out maybe afterwards, and that's not to sort of shoot any couples down. Like, it's kind of managing expectations. Sometimes I'll get the odd couple once every few years that'll kind of give me a list of 305 photographs, and you're kind of like, but you're also telling them in the same breath that you want to be present at your drinks reception and be there with your and I'm like, something has to give. I don't mind if you want to go out for a 4-hour photo shoot. It's not my jam normally. Like, I'll always explain to them, listen, I get 15 or 20 minutes with you as a couple, I'm delighted because I want to enjoy the day. However, like I said earlier, I'm a yes man. If you want to go out and have a full photo shoot, you are going to miss your drinks reception. You are going to miss this. And it's a bit of education on my part to sort of manage those expectations. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, I was doing a wedding in Bellingham Castle, and I rolled in the morning time, absolute wonderful family, and the bride presented me with a list. It was literally a 5 to 10 minute rundown of her wedding day from 9 a.m. to midnight. She actually had me there for midnight, which I don't offer realistically. But she had paid. She said, "Mark, I want it all. I want the whole shebang. Quote me whatever it is, and I want you there." But there was literally a 5 minute by 5 minute rundown of that entire day, and in front of the family. I always remember the videographer laughing at this. I said to her, "Do you mind if I rip this up?" Which is pretty ballsy in the morning when you have all the bridesmaids and the mum and everybody's living their best life. I says, because I want you to enjoy your day. And I says, no wedding is a 5 minute by 5 minute. You're going to fixate on that. You're not going to enjoy the day.
And he ripped it.
I ripped it up. And the videographer couldn't believe it. He was like, mate, that could have went down like...
It could have, but there's something that, look, be prepared.
Yeah.
It's not what you think it's...
But the bride later came back and thanked Mark.
She thanked me for it, and you know what?
But it's not what like even like I have brides. It's a idea. We were thinking for yourself. What about a 6 o'clock start? So 6, and then you'd be finished at 7, and then we're going to have the band then from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and then the DJ, he's going to come on at 9 o'clock. He's doing 11, and then we have another DJ coming from 11, and he's doing through the...
It's never going to happen.
No, and because the photographers normally hoil everything up and
I'm away.
No, but it's not that. The thing is with that is expectations, and think about your timings. Really.
No one knows how long the speeches are going to be.
No.
Like, 9 times out of 10, the couple don't even know. Like, if nobody has a say on if the bride's dad gets up and wants to speak for half an hour. I have never seen it, nor will I ever see it. The staff of the hotel are going to come over and be like, cut that.
Cut them now,
It's one time you can't. And sometimes I will see venues go over and say, do you know roughly how long your speech is going to be? Which is very clever on their behalf. And the dad will say it's about 8 minutes. I kind of timed it at home. And they'll go round and they'll be like, there's 5 speakers, they're all averaging 8 minutes each, so there's 40 minutes.
But even traffic in the day, Mark, and everything, like, you don't know what's going to... And like I've so many couples, and I'll sort of say to them, look, my experience, I've done so many weddings, roughly this is what time I normally, or I'll know the venue. If they say we're getting married at this venue, I can say to them, look, normal
the
time
run
at
of
that
tight ship.
venue. I
Yeah.
can nearly tell you what time we'll be on at.
Yeah.
You know, give them an idea. Like, do you know what I mean?
Funny enough, I said this to a DJ recently. I said one of the biggest myths in the wedding industry seems to be that 8 p.m. first dance. They're like first dance. Oh, like if you look at all these timelines of a day, it's like first dance 8 p.m. And like
that's why I always say, like, you know, I'm not advertising after meal entertainment, but it sometimes does work, because see, after the meal, the bride and groom might disappear for a while.
Yeah. They check into the room. That's the time to get
You know,
time to themselves.
and do something like that. So, you know, something like after meal entertainment for guests that's maybe sitting about or doing something like that, it can be helpful. Do you know what I mean? And like, I have a bride say to me, look, Dale, I hope you're not, offended. You know, during your show, we're going to go and do, put the kids to bed. We're going to go and do this. We're, going to go and do that. I said, no, not at all. Like, it's your day. Like, so, don't be offended to go and do that, or say to offender, look, we're going to do this now. And, them could be good wee gaps. They have 100%. Stuff like that booked and stuff.
I think it's so important, especially for the couple as well. I always tend to feel after the meal in between your band or DJ setting up, that is one time that you get to actually spend time as a couple. I always get a lot of couples going, Mark, we're going to go and take ourselves off for 20 minutes, half an hour. We're going to check in their room and we're just going to chill out and just soak it in a wee bit. And it's as ironic as it is on a wedding day, you don't normally get that. I always say when you're doing your couple shoot with me, whether it be for 15, 20, 25 minutes, you're present with each other. You're away from all the hustle and bustle of people torching you for selfies. Can I get you a drink? They're having a yarn with you. You're actually there.
I think it's one of the most important things for a couple on their wedding day. Find that
absolutely, and spend time together and travel around together rather than going off separately to your different people. I've more and more couples now that I'm seeing.
Hard too, because you sort of tend to go with your family, and the bride will tend to go with her family, but do you even find that wee time of yourselves and take that time and enjoy it, sort of thing.
Big time.
Moving on, I suppose it's more for vendors. Why some wedding businesses fail, and fast, honest conversations about burnout, underpricing and ego and stuff like that. Businesses fail, I suppose, wedding businesses, and I suppose that can go to couples too, like, as well. Whenever you're booking a vendor and stuff, is it too loose? Is it too fast? Is it there's businesses that sort of come and go, as well. So I suppose that can be a fear.
That's it. You do see people. I've said over the years. Once again, I've educated a lot of photographers, and you'll get people that'll dip into the industry and then realise after a couple of years and be like, this isn't for me. I'm going to go back to being a civil servant. I'm quite happy doing it.
And that can be where the pricing too hits it. Like, I've seen people that started up in like your industry, especially like the photography and videography, where you have a load of editing, and how yourself, it's great crack in the day markets.
That's it. Trying to juggle that the aftermath.
You're not seeing
the work that goes in behind the scenes.
Hey, it's probably like a day job. You're up in the morning at 9 o'clock. You're sitting in front of the computer. You're airbrushing this. You're doing that. You're editing your work. You're getting it ready for couples and stuff. And there's people come into the industry, and it's all parts of the industry, whether it be photography, videography, that might go, oh, that's a good day's pay. It's not a day's pay.
I get that all the time. Dealing with Celebrant,
I was guilty of saying it to Danielle. I says, you know what? I could be a wee Celebrant at some stage in later life. It's a cushy number. And
do you think you could?
No. Well, it's the business side.
I have now, but I see since seeing Danielle doing what she does, I'm like, no.
Deal, there's lots of celebrants that train as celebrants and then never actually go on in this world. And I think it is because from the outside, as sitting as a guest at a wedding and seeing what I do and seeing the delivery, they think, oh my goodness, I could do that. And because they see this, like, just the presentation side of things, and they don't actually see the work that goes in behind the scenes. And like, I can only speak on behalf of celebrants out there, the work that we do, and this is why we are at a different price point than the likes of a registrar and things like that. The work that goes in behind the scenes is immense. Like, it's crazy, and it goes across the board, with all suppliers. I would be saying to a lot of couples sometimes looking, and that goes again to price point. You're looking at these suppliers and you're thinking, like, why are they charging so much for that, and why are they doing this, and like I don't understand that, but
And I
actually
suppose
you don't see the
overscales
work
money
that goes in.
You know, if somebody's charging very little, you know,
Can be a red flag as well.
can be a red
Yeah,
flag.
absolutely.
You know, look at that and go,
I would be questioning why they're
why-
charging
why
so little
is that so
too.
cheap?
Yeah.
You know, are they going to be in business the time my wedding comes around?
Absolutely.
I've seen it before, and I've even advised some photographers before when I've seen their price, and be like, see if you break that down on an hourly rate by the time you've done your consultation or your phone calls, you've went and photographed a day, and then you've spent, you know, so many hours doing the edit or the album design or whatever the case may be. I've sort of said to them, geez, you're on min wage. Like,
Yeah.
you know, why do that when so much responsibility? This is a one-off life occasion. You can't balls it up. You cannot make a mistake. Otherwise, your neck is on the chopping block. And my attitude is, listen, you could go and work in Asda with no stress and be paid the same money. You know, without all that hassle. So
But
this job comes with such a huge
it's a big thing as
responsibility.
well. We can only do so much within, you know, like I can only do so many performances a year. You can only, you know, you can like literally only commit yourself to so many weddings each year.
So true.
You can only commit yourself to so many weddings. We're charging to do that. Like, I can't go out and you know, I can't go out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday all year round and, you know, do...
Because you would reach burnout.
Well,
You would massively reach burnout. Yeah.
But you can't do that. It's just, you know, it's physically not there. People don't get married. You know, people aren't having their hypnotist at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, like, you know,
Exactly.
and then I can't go then and do one at 3 o'clock. Like, it just doesn't...
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
That's it. They're paying for the exclusivity of the date with yourself. Once
Exactly,
you've said yes to
exactly.
that, like there's many a date where we have, you know, been booked 2 years in advance, and you look throughout that 2 years and you've maybe been inquired for 15 different times. But that's why you've paid a premium. That's why you've paid a booking fee.
And like everybody else, we're all juggling family life. We're all, you know, we all have that as well. So, like, you know.
Well, that's it. We,
you know.
like, people in the industry always joke on about us and our holidays and things like that. And I think that's where we really focus on our work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I think it's all important for all wedding vendors to really, like, put an emphasis on life as well, outside. Because when you're running your own business, it is a case that you're working behind the scenes an awful lot. Like, Mark and I don't stop behind the scenes, but also then we take our times out and we book our holidays. We enjoy our holidays, but those are our dedicated family time.
We block gaps out in our diary purposely to have that undivided time with our family.
Yeah,
you know,
we look ahead, like our 2028 diaries are both open, but we've already block booked all of our holidays that year. We obviously haven't got holidays booked, but we've blocked out the time, because if you don't commit to that, you'll never get that time. And you know, we are in an industry that we book in advance, and in order to you know, sustain our lives alongside our two businesses.
Do you find that
we
difficult?
do.
I know for me personally, I find it that, you know, I don't know what you're like, and do you know what, like I've been chatting to other people within the industry, and you know, like you'd be so like, you know, there's so many times in my diary where it's, you know, X out this is X'd out, and then you come back to it in 3 months time, oh well, there's a booking on there now.
No,
Do you find that difficult?
we are so good because we're both in this industry now, because we both have to commit to dates in advance. We now set those dates, and we
Jimmy
commit.
kills me at times, like, you know, like literally, unless there's a
Sometimes there's a kick in the teeth, because you get a really good inquiry in, and you read it and you think, oh my goodness me, I would love to do that wedding. But you know what? Like, we value our time with our children,
so
and
I nearly need to book a flight. Like I have to see that there's an actual flight physically booked.
I get that.
You know,
Like, there was
you know,
one lovely bride that got in touch with me, and she was looking for 2028, and at the time I didn't have my 2028 diary open. And once I said to her, I'll keep you on my system, and once I open my diary, I'll have a look at it, and you know, we'll approach it then. I opened my 2028 diary, got back to all of those like inactive inquiries that were sitting there waiting for me, got back to her, and hers happened to fall over like an Easter holiday break, and we had said that was going to be our holiday
Yeah.
time.
Thankfully.
So I did have to go back to her and I had to say, listen, I know I've just opened my 2028 diary, but your date falls within a time frame that I've set as holidays off. And I am so sorry, and I felt so guilty. Honestly, I felt, because I knew she had also been sitting waiting for me to open my diary, and I felt awful, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And she came back to me and she said, absolutely, do not apologise. Your family life is so important too, Danielle. And I thought, how beautiful is that she actually seen that as well.
Yeah.
But it is difficult, and it's sometimes you're like, oh, I could take that work on. Like, but we commit to it.
I literally have to, book flights, or else we're big, like,
we're very disciplined in saying our family time, our 2 children are still young, like our dedicated family time is so important. We love getting away, exploring.
That's it. You can't get it back. At the end of the day, obviously you're working around school holidays and stuff like that as well, and obviously for us summer is peak season, so you're always kind of juggling that with family support and childcare, and so those times are so important. As much as it pains us to say no at times, it has to be done.
We've got to do it.
Yeah.
Right, so with some questions from our Facebook group, and we're going to head on them, and we're going to take a look.
Check out this technology.
Do I need my glasses, or do
You should need your glasses in there.
Looking for some advice on timeline for our wedding day. Our wedding venue has suggested drinks and cannabis from 2:15 to 5:15, seated for speeches at 5:30 and dinner at 6:15. Evening guests to arrive at 8:30. Our ceremony and reception is all at our venue. Is 3 hours too long for drinks reception? Is 6:15 too late for dinner? Is 8:30 too late for evening guests to arrive? Our venue is over an hour away from where we live, so evening guests would be travelling a fair distance. Oh, there's a lot to break down in that, isn't there?
I'll maybe take a stab at this one as someone who sees this timeline day in, day out. For me, this is all personally speaking, of course. 3 hours is far too long for a drinks reception. If you have, if your friends and family are fond of a wee pint or two, they're going to be half tore by the time your dinner's being served.
Hey, that's a great thing, and it's probably something that wasn't even thought about in that place.
Like you think of it, you go on a night out and you're out at 9 and you're home at midnight. You're well oiled at that stage, so that's no different to 3 hours drinking time at a drinks reception. For me, your perfect time for a drinks reception, is 2 hours. It allows for, if you have like an afternoon singer or a quartet or whatever the case may be, any form of entertainment, 2 hours is perfect.
I would say we'd find it difficult even for a performer to say commit to 3 hours. They'll not really do it.
Two's perfect, because from my perspective, realistically speaking, for your couple photographs, your family photographs, and your wedding party photographs, you're still going to have over an hour to enjoy, at least an hour to enjoy with your friends and family. Because I always like to break it up into little segments of the day, so that is the perfect time, in my opinion.
A big one I'm going to hit on there as well is cannabis 5:15. Nobody ever was in seating guests. Nobody ever takes on time of seating guests.
No, how long it takes.
It's something that's never taken in, because I'll actually say, whenever people book me to do MC and speeches, I'll sort of put hotel needs to seat you at this time, and people say, why are we getting seated so early? And you're like, because it takes about half an hour to get your guests seated.
I have a wedding this weekend and there's 248 guests, so that doesn't happen in 10 minutes.
That's 45 minutes to seat them.
So if that was me and I was the wedding coordinator of that wedding, I would even sort of say, 2:15 to 4:30 at the latest would be my advice. Reason being, getting them all seated, speech is taking place no later than 5 p.m, and realistically dinner then should be kicking off 5:30, 5:45, and that should all be turned around for no later than 8 p.m, and that's when you should be telling your guests to land in.
Yeah, the evening guests to arrive.
So hypothetically speaking, you should be ready to rock. Your evening should be ready to kick off anywhere between 8 p.m and 9 p.m. Well, that'd be your band, your DJ, and then you've got a good 4, 5, depending on where you're getting married. Some of these places across the border, you get the 2 a.m.
You need to be getting married pretty early in the day there, that the 2:15, because if you're an hour away from your venue there.
I know.
Yeah, but she said they're in the same place.
Yeah. So
our ceremony and receptions.
So from that perspective, no, that'll be a 1 p.m. ceremony. By the time it doesn't kick off to 1:15, because let's face it, nothing ever runs on time as such. And if the ceremony's 30 minutes, 40 minutes tops. You're done and dusted for 2 o'clock, which would kind of be would be the norm for a summer timeline.
That sounds all pretty good. I would just pull this 5:15 day, but start seating your guests at about probably 4:30. Do you give your guests about half an hour to be seated, which would be 5 o'clock, and then speeches 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I know from some of the most popular wedding venues in Northern Ireland, the likes of Clandyboy Lodge or Galgorm. I always joke on and say 4:30 seems to be the 9 times out of 10 normal call-in time, because it is a 1 p.m. ceremony.
Even Tully Glass, they're
they're on the money. Yeah,
they're on the money. Like, they do run a tight ship.
Yeah,
like,
and that's important too, because you do, without naming shaming any venues, you do see some venues where dinner service can take a little longer,
and you're losing out your day.
Yeah, it can be a 3 hour turnaround, or sometimes it could be to do with the many courses they have. They might have a 6-course dinner, and all of a sudden that adds in time, or hypothetically, you have 200 plus guests, and that's going to take longer than a wedding.
I think as well, we'll probably do something on the group that we can put up as well. Maybe timelines or something would be a good idea. Yeah. We'll do one more question because you guys have to go. We've been talking for ages.
We're talking about juggling life. That's it. Back to the school.
Back to the school run.
Back to being mum and dad again.
So we'll do one more question. Evening. Right, I'm going to meet the wedding coordinator tomorrow at Lusty Beg. Does anyone have any questions, advice that they could recommend asking, saying, etc.? So what sort of questions should you be asking your wedding coordinator? I think this is really a thing to do with time. How close to the wedding are you? Mm-hmm. Do you know, is this your sort of final meeting?
Is this like a final meeting, or is this an early meeting?
We'll maybe go to a final. We'll maybe say at a final meeting. I don't know.
Could be, at the end of the day, it could be based on anything. Like I have a lot of couples when they book the likes of Lusty Beg, they're booking it for their outdoorsy vibe and the kind of summer feel, and that's kind of what they're going for. So I suppose one of the questions the couples would ask: Can we bring our dog onto the island? Can they be involved in the wedding?
Yeah.
What ways it work with your outdoor ceremonies? Is there different settings? Is it just at the jetty? Is there other places you can get married?
Yeah.
What's the alternative if the weather isn't great?
How does
that work? What's
key one?
Them's all good questions.
How much?
It really does depend how close to the wedding you are. I think if you're doing, if you're just sort of going the early doors, have a look around and stuff.
It's got to change the question.
Enjoy it more than anything. Don't be getting too caught up yet to ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. Enjoy the visit. Is the venue for you? Is it something you like? And then maybe at your next sort of show around, then you can maybe get
one of the key questions would be, if you're going down, you have 100 plus guests, how far in advance can you block the accommodation off? Because if you imagine it's a busy time, and once again it's a very tourist driven venue, Lusty Beg, so what happens if 80% of your accommodation is booked up and there's only 20% remaining? Where are your guests going to go to? Because you then have to get off the island.
That's really good.
For me, it's those kind of questions that you need to hone in on, especially with it being an exclusive island venue.
The new function room looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous. They built a new bar area and refurbed it. It's absolutely beautiful.
Really nice. So I think it all depends how close out from the wedding you are. Is this like a final meet, or is it like a meet that's sort of only happening?
Yeah.
I think we've touched on lots today, haven't we?
It's been awesome.
We've got through lots.
It's been great.
Thank you so much. The Posh and Becks of weddings. Danielle Barnes. He's delighted.
Can you just cut a reel of that there? Just the excitement in my face at that stage. That'd be awesome.
Danielle, Mark Barnes, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
That's great. Thank you.
So there we go. Thank you so much for listening in. Thanks so much to my guests, Mark and Danielle Barnes. And remember, for all your wedding needs, it's www.weddinghelpni.com, and do check out our Facebook group. We are the largest Facebook group for couples in Northern Ireland getting married. Thanks for joining us, guys. Bye for now.
Thank you.